I always knew silence could be loud, but nothing compares to the way that front door mocked me. I stood there, jet-lagged, suitcase in hand, blinking at a lock that had been changed without a word of warning. I twisted the key again, pointless. My fingers trembled, more from disbelief than the October wind cutting through my suit. Then came the notification. My phone buzzed like it had something funny to say. A message from her, sent from inside my living room. It read, "I'm with a real man now. Don't come back." No name. No explanation. Just that. Cold. Final. For a moment, I stared at the screen, trying to process the sheer disrespect. Then I laughed. I actually laughed, right there on the porch of the house I paid for, in the neighborhood I chose, outside the home I built with her. And now some stranger was probably in there, on my couch, wearing my robe, stroking my dog. I didn't ring the bell. Didn't call. Didn't bang the door down. I simply turned, walked down the steps, and drove away. But 5 days later, her entire life began to collapse. Let me take you back. Her name is Alyssa. My wife, or, I guess, was. She's the type of woman who walks into a room and commands it, heels sharp enough to slice glass, smile calculated to draw blood. When I met her, I thought I found fire in human form. Turns out, I married a forest fire, and I was the damn fuel. My name is Jason Miller, 38, executive strategist, built everything from scratch. Discipline was my religion. Loyalty was my code. And Alyssa? She was the one exception I made to every rule. We were married for 6 years. No kids, her choice. Too much of a commitment, she'd laugh. Funny. Marriage apparently wasn't. I should have seen it coming. 3 months before the locks changed, she started acting different. More makeup to run errands. Her phone never left her hand, even in the shower. She laughed too hard at texts she wouldn't show me. And the perfume? Stronger. Too strong. The kind of scent you don't wear to Target. You wear it when you're trying to leave a memory on someone else's pillow. I asked her once, calmly, "Is there someone else?" She blinked, smirked. "What are you, insecure now?" "That's not attractive, babe." And like an idiot, I backed off. Gave her space. Because that's what partners do. The conference in San Diego came up. 3 days, full schedule. She didn't even kiss me goodbye. Just said, "Good luck making boring people feel important." I should have known right then. But I had no idea I was flying across the country so she could play house with another man in mind. You know what's worse than betrayal? It's surgical betrayal. The kind that's planned. She didn't just cheat. She orchestrated it. Waited until she knew my flight schedule, then replaced me while I was giving a keynote speech on loyalty and trust. You can't make this up. The second I saw that message on my phone, something inside me shifted. Not broken, just recalibrated. There's a moment where pain burns so hot, it freezes. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was clear. She thought she'd ended the story. But all she did was hand me the pin. And that's when the real story started. Because by day 5, she had no idea what I was setting in motion behind the scenes. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I built something much colder than revenge. I built a reckoning. After she changed the locks and sent that message, I didn't respond. No angry text. No calls. Silence is a language she never learned to understand, and that's exactly why I used it. But in that silence, I started rewinding everything in my head. Every odd moment. Every lie she dressed as sarcasm. Every red flag I painted white. The first sign should have been the new gym membership. Alyssa hated sweating. Always said, "Why should I destroy my makeup just to look tired?" Then one day, out of nowhere, she's wearing Lululemon like a second skin and doing Pilates 3 times a week. Except I noticed her location never once pinged at the gym. Not once. Then there were the networking dinners. She claimed her company was expanding, and they needed her to wine and dine new partners. Funny, I never saw a single business card. Just blurry selfies of wine glasses and candlelight. Her phone, God, that phone, locked tighter than Fort Knox. Once, she forgot it on the kitchen counter when she went to shower. I picked it up instinctively. Not even to snoop. Just to check the time. She bolted out of the bathroom like it was a bomb I just activated. "Respect my privacy." She screamed. I remember freezing, my hand still holding the phone, thinking, when did this become war? But I let it go. Every damn time, I let it go. Because that's what we're taught, right? Trust your wife. Don't be controlling. Don't be that guy. Well, guess what? That guy was right. I should have been him. The thing about betrayal is it never starts loud. It begins with whispers. The kind you dismiss at first, until they echo louder than your own instincts. She started treating me like an inconvenience. Every conversation was a battle. Every kiss felt like charity. She rolled her eyes more than she smiled. I remember once I made her breakfast, something I hadn't done in a while. French toast, strawberries, even fresh squeezed orange juice. She looked at the plate like it was a dead rat. Too many carbs, she muttered, then shoved it aside and left for a strategy meeting. She wasn't pulling away. She was already gone. I just hadn't caught up yet. So when I stood there, outside the house we once called ours, knowing there was another man inside, probably wrapped in the silk sheets I bought her last Valentine's Day, I didn't explode. I became still. I got in my car and started making calls. Not to her. To my lawyer. To my financial advisor. To my security guy, Sam. Because if she wanted war, she just declared it in my own damn castle. And she forgot one very important thing. I built everything. And I don't lose. The first night after the lockout, I didn't sleep. Not even a minute. I wasn't on a friend's couch. I wasn't in some cheap hotel crying into a pillow. I booked the presidential suite at the Fairmont downtown. I laid on the king-sized bed with floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city blink below me, thinking, calculating, remembering. I wasn't mourning a woman. I was reviewing the evidence. And what I saw disgusted me. My wife, Alyssa, wasn't a victim of temptation. She wasn't seduced or confused. No. She was methodical, surgical. She planned this. She turned our home into a theater. And the worst part? I didn't even know I was the audience. I started to pull records. Bank charges. Card GPS logs. Phone call history. She thought I wouldn't notice that her yoga retreat in Napa had a $780 charge at an oceanfront hotel in Santa Barbara. Not exactly downward dog. And then came the kicker, the security footage. I still had remote access to the doorbell cam. She must have forgotten. I watched it 3 times. Tuesday, 3:12 p.m. Alyssa exits the house in a red dress I'd never seen before. 5-inch heels. Hair curled like it's date night. Then, a black Range Rover pulls up. Out comes him. I didn't recognize him. You'd think if your wife is going to detonate your life, she'd cheat with someone taller, smarter, richer, anything. But this guy? Looked like a washed-up personal trainer from a failed reality show. Cheap suit. Cocky grin. Like he'd already moved in. He kissed her, my wife, before she even opened the gate. And she laughed. Loud. Careless. Happy. That's when something inside me snapped. Not emotionally. Strategically. This wasn't heartbreak. This was a hostile takeover. And I don't lose in business. She wanted to throw me out of my own life? Fine. I'd return the favor permanently. The next morning, I moved fast. First, I froze the joint accounts. I left just enough in her card to let her swipe once at Starbucks, then declined. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. I contacted my attorney, Grant Walters, a shark in a suit. We'd drawn up a post-nup 3 years ago. Alyssa signed it, drunk off martinis and my promise that we'd never need it. She was about to learn why lawyers love optimism. Then came the locksmith. I sent him to the lake house. She forgot that property was still in my name only. It wasn't big, but it had value. And I knew she kept her designer bags and secret stash of champagne there. I changed the locks on her little getaway spot. She thought she was clever changing my home's locks? I just made her homeless again. But I wasn't done. Not even close. By day 3, she still hadn't reached out. Not a word. No apology. No explanation. She truly thought she'd won. That told me everything I needed to know. Alyssa didn't just betray me, she was proud of it. She paraded that man around like some kind of prize, like she'd upgraded from a Rolex to a diamond-studded crown. What she didn't realize is that crown was made of tin, and the man, nothing more than a paper line. I knew her patterns. She was predictable in all the ways that matter. Every Friday, she'd go to that same little bistro on 9th Street with her girls. Except now I knew better. There were no girls. Just one guy. So I sent someone. Sam, my security consultant, was ex-military. Quiet, precise, invisible when he needed to be. I didn't need drama. I needed information. He sat 2 tables away, blending in with the crowd. Took pictures. Recorded audio. Sent me a folder marked Friday night, the Queen and her clown. I opened the video file and there they were, Alyssa and her real man. He had his hand on her thigh, whispering something into her ear while she laughed that fake laugh she used to give me when she wanted something. And then, the cherry on top, she handed him a new watch. A Rolex. My Rolex. My blood went cold. That wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. I zoomed in on the engraving. For J. Miller, time never stops. A gift from my board after we hit 10 million in net growth. She gave it to him like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. It was no longer about emotions now. This was a game of power. And I was about to flip the board. That night, I called my lawyer again. Pull the clause. The one about infidelity. He whistled. Are you sure? Dead sure, I said. I want everything triggered. Now. See, that postnup? It had a very specific clause. If she was caught in an affair, with proof, she lost all rights to joint property. House. Cars. Accounts. Even the dog. She signed it back when she thought she'd never need to worry. Now? She was about to find out exactly what that signature meant. The next morning, the papers were filed. Infidelity clause engaged. Court-ordered freeze on assets. Notice to vacate the property she was squatting in, my home. And a lawsuit for conversion of stolen property. Yes, I included the watch. I didn't rage. I didn't shout. I weaponized the very structure she tried to tear down. By the time she opened her designer fridge for almond milk and saw the power shut off, she finally called me. Blocked.it happened on a Wednesday. I was in a meeting with 2 international partners when my assistant, Rachel, buzzed through. There's a woman in reception. She's refusing to leave. I didn't need to ask who. Only one person would have the audacity to storm into my office building in 6-inch heels and a desperate perfume cloud. I stepped out of the glass conference room just as she turned. Alyssa. She looked like a woman who'd bet everything and lost the house. Makeup smeared. Hair frizzed. The kind of expression that only forms when a carefully curated world begins to crack. She didn't say my name. She just blurted, "Why would you do this to me?" I laughed, quietly. Do this to you? You changed the locks and sent a breakup text from my couch. You want sympathy now? She stepped closer. That was different. That was about us. You're ruining my life. I folded my arms. Sweetheart, I didn't ruin anything. You handed me the matches and poured the gasoline yourself. She started to cry. Big, dramatic sobs that used to work on me. Not anymore. I didn't know he'd just vanish, she whispered. That caught my attention. Wait, he left? I asked. She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Said he wasn't ready for all this. Pressure. The bills, the responsibility. He thought I had money. I blinked once. So your real man ran when the check came? She flinched like I slapped her. Jason, please. Just give me a chance to explain. I made a mistake. No, I cut in. You made a choice. Don't you dare insult both of us by calling it a mistake. The people in the lobby were watching now, whispering. I didn't care. Let them see. Let them witness how quickly the mighty fall. You don't understand, she pleaded. I have nowhere to go. I lost the lake house. I can't even access my account. My parents think I'm insane. I just need to suffer, I said flatly. You need to suffer. She froze. You don't mean that. Oh, but I do, I whispered. Every tear, every sleepless night you gave me, I want it multiplied in your life. And if that makes me the villain in your story, then so be it. I'll wear that crown proudly. Her jaw dropped. For once in her life, Alyssa had no comeback. She turned and stormed toward the exit, heels echoing like gunshots. Just before she reached the door, I said one last thing. You might have changed the locks, Alyssa, but you locked yourself out of everything. She paused, but didn't turn back. That was the last time I saw her face in person. The next time I heard her name was in court. Court is cold. Not in temperature, but in tone. There's no room for feelings there, only facts, signatures, and timelines. Which is exactly why I felt at home. I walked into the courtroom 3 weeks after that lobby scene, calm and polished in a tailored navy suit. Alyssa? She showed up in a beige dress that tried too hard to look modest. No designer labels this time. No heels. Just flats and trembling hands. She looked smaller. Good. She sat across from me at the petitioner's table, her new lawyer flipping through papers like he hadn't been paid enough to care. Maybe he hadn't. I knew she couldn't afford anyone close to the caliber of mine. Grant Walters was a legal machine wrapped in sarcasm. The judge entered. The bailiff called order. And like that, the dismantling began. The first hit? The postnup. Grant stood up and slid the document across the table like a winning poker hand. Signed, notarized, witnessed. Clause 7b, marital misconduct through infidelity leads to forfeiture of joint property and assets. Alyssa tried to object. Her voice cracked. I didn't understand what I was signing at the time. Grant didn't even look at her. Your Honor, she had 3 glasses of wine, not a lobotomy. Laughter murmured through the gallery. The judge raised a brow but said nothing. Then came the evidence. Photos, videos, card statements, GPS logs, the doorbell cam footage. All dated, all damning. Alyssa sat frozen as each exhibit was presented, her face draining of whatever color she had left. I watched her eyes. She didn't blink, didn't move, didn't speak. When her lawyer finally stood to respond, he fumbled. Oh, my client was under emotional stress. She felt neglected. Grant didn't even stand to reply. And she responded by squatting in his home with another man, using his money, his property, and his dog. The judge sighed, clearly done. I've seen enough. Hammer. Silence. Ruling. In favor of the petitioner, me. Alyssa forfeited all rights to the house, the secondary property, joint investments, and the car I gifted her last year. Even the dog, Max, was officially awarded to me. She was left with a suitcase, a laptop, and a 5-figure legal bill. As the courtroom emptied, she tried one last time. Jason, she whispered, voice dry, eyes glassy. You really hate me that much? I turned slowly, looked her dead in the face, and said, no, hate takes effort. What I feel is nothing. And that's worse. Then I walked out. Sunlight hit me on the courthouse steps like a spotlight. Not victorious, just free. And freedom, it turns out, feels a lot like silence. Except this time, it didn't hurt. Life after betrayal is strangely quiet. No angry texts. No slammed doors. No footsteps pacing the hallway at midnight. Just silence. Real, uninterrupted silence. And for the first time in a long time, it was peaceful. After court, Alyssa disappeared. I heard whispers. She moved in with a friend temporarily, tried to crash at her sister's, maybe even went crawling back to her parents. No one really wanted her. Not now. Not after everything she did became public record. I never said a word to mutual friends. I didn't need to. The truth had its own legs. Once the photos leaked, her laughing in my backyard, kissing her affair partner in my robe, it was over for her socially. Her old friend group? Gone. The couples we used to host? Siding with me. Even her yoga instructor unfollowed her. Alyssa burned every bridge with a gallon of gasoline and a smug smile. Now she was trying to swim back across the ashes. Not my problem. I focused on rebuilding. Not just my finances, which, honestly, had never been better, but my sense of self. I redecorated the house. Removed every trace of her. New paint, new furniture, even new silverware. You'd be surprised how satisfying it is to throw away a plate someone once used to insult you over dinner. I started waking up early again. Lifting heavier. Eating cleaner. The physical transformation wasn't the goal, but it came anyway. One morning, I looked in the mirror and didn't just see a survivor. I saw a man who rebuilt himself from the ground up. But healing isn't always linear. Some nights I'd lie in bed and wonder, was any of it ever real? Did she love me even a little? Or was I just the stepping stone between her ambition and her next fantasy? I never got those answers. But I learned something better. I didn't need them. What mattered wasn't why she did it. What mattered was that I refused to let it define me. One night, I ran into someone at a charity gala. Her name was Melissa. Divorced. Smart. Soft laugh. Eyes that didn't hide things. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guarded. I didn't feel like I had to look over my shoulder for lies and high heels. She wasn't a replacement. She was just different. Real. That night, as I walked her to her car, she smiled and said, "You're not like other guys I've met lately. You seem clear." I smiled back. Pain either poisons you or purifies you, I said. I chose the second. She kissed me goodnight. Soft, slow. No games. No power plays. Just a moment. And in that moment, I realized something. Alyssa broke the man I was. But in doing so, she helped build the man I was always meant to be. It's been 11 months since that message lit up my phone. I'm with a real man now. Sent from my living room. Sent from my life. Back then, those words felt like a bullet. Now, just background noise and a story I outgrew. I've learned something about pain. It either anchors you or fuels you. I chose to burn it and use the heat to rise. Alyssa tried to erase me. Change the locks. Replace the man. Take the house. The life. the future we built. But what she never understood, what she'll never understand, is that a man who builds his world from nothing doesn't panic when someone tries to take it. He rebuilds. Better. Stronger. And this time, smarter. After the court ruling, she filed one desperate appeal. Denied. Then came the apology email, 5 paragraphs of poetic nonsense that read more like a marketing pitch than remorse. I didn't reply. Some people don't deserve closure. A few months ago, I heard she tried starting a lifestyle blog. It tanked. Then she got a job at a luxury boutique. Fired after 3 weeks for conflict with management. The last whisper I heard? She moved states. Changed her last name. Probably trying to outrun her reputation. But you can't outrun truth. You can't outrun the person who remembers everything. And me? I didn't just remember, I documented. You know what's funny? The man she left me for? Never even had a job. Lived off short-term gigs and borrowed charm. The moment her card declined and her friends vanished, so did he. Turns out, real men don't run when the lights go out. They build when there's nothing left. Today, my life doesn't just look different, it feels different. I sleep deeply. I laugh louder. I stopped looking over my shoulder and started looking ahead. Melissa and I? We're not rushing. We're healing, learning, unlearning. She knows my story. Not the gory details, just enough. Enough to respect the scars without needing to touch them. And me? I learned the most powerful revenge isn't destruction. It's evolution. So here's my advice to anyone walking the road I did. Don't chase closure. Don't beg for the truth. Don't try to fix someone who broke you on purpose. Instead, go silent. Go calm. Go cold, if you must. But whatever you do, don't let betrayal define you. Let it refine you. I'm not the man who came home from a business trip to find the locks changed and a message waiting. I'm the man who turned that message into motivation, who turned heartbreak into blueprint, who turned pain into peace. And when I pass by that house now, the one I once called home, I don't feel rage. I feel nothing. And that's how I know. I won. I heard the sirens before I saw the flashing lights. Red and blue danced across the walls of my garage as I stood frozen, wrench in hand, sweat still dripping from my temple. I was tightening a bolt on my '68 Mustang, the only thing lately that made sense in my life, when the garage door burst open and 2 officers charged in, weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them. On the ground. I dropped the wrench. It clanged loudly against the concrete, echoing with the kind of finality I couldn't yet understand. They cuffed me so fast I barely processed the cold steel around my wrists. Eric Johnson, one of the officers, said, checking a clipboard like he was reading off a damn grocery list. You're under arrest for the alleged kidnapping of one Mr. Dylan Grant. Dylan. That was the name. The same Dylan my wife, Jessica, claimed was just her fitness coach. I should have known the moment she started wearing perfume to the gym. Wait. I barked, heart racing. You think I kidnapped him? They didn't answer. They didn't care. It wasn't until I was sitting in that cold interrogation room, under buzzing fluorescent lights that felt like they could expose every dark part of your soul, that it began to sink in. Jessica had done this. She really did it. She called the police. Lied through her porcelain teeth. All because I didn't roll over and let her humiliate me in silence. But it got worse. 3 days later, they let my kids come see me. It was supposed to be monitored visitation, but no one monitored the way my heart shattered when my 14-year-old son, Caleb, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Mom keeps calling you a criminal. She told everyone you kidnapped Dylan because you couldn't accept that he was better than you, a superior alpha lover." I stared at him, blood rushing in my ears like a freight train. Alpha lover? She used that line on my son? What kind of twisted woman does that? That's when something broke in me. Some last thread of patience snapped like a dry twig in a wildfire. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. And I knew, when I got out of that hellhole, Jessica would regret everything. But let me back up. You deserve the full story, not just the end result. I need to tell you how a simple man like me, 39 years old, father of 2, husband for 15 miserable years, ended up being accused of kidnapping a dude who wore pink tank tops and whispered motivational quotes into my wife's ear while she squatted low for maximum burn. You need to know how Jessica turned into something I didn't recognize. How her lips could still smile while stabbing me in the ribs with lies so smooth, I almost believed them myself. You need to know how a man who gave up everything, his youth, his dreams, his nights, his weekends, in the name of family, became the villain in the story she wrote behind my back. It didn't start with cops or headlines. It started, like all betrayals, with a look. One look. Jessica stopped looking at me. Her eyes would pass over me like I was part of the furniture. But when that phone buzzed, she lit up like a Christmas tree. And the gym? Suddenly, it was her sanctuary. 2-hour sessions, 5 days a week. No sweat, no soreness, just perfectly done makeup and forgotten thongs in her gym bag. I once asked her, jokingly, "You training for a marathon or a modeling contract?" She replied, without even looking up from her phone, "Maybe for someone who still appreciates the view." That was her. Every compliment laced with venom. Every laugh like a slap in the face. And the lies? Oh, she was gifted. She could lie with her eyes closed. Say one thing with her mouth and a totally different thing with her body. She told me she loved me while adjusting her bra in the mirror like she was rehearsing for someone else's touch. She told me she'd be late from yoga. I checked her location. She was at the Lakeside Inn. I know, because I followed her once. Parked across the street like some rejected private eye in a truck that smelled like desperation. I watched her step out of that hotel laughing, brushing her fingers through her hair like a teenager on prom night. And there he was, Dylan, walking behind her, smirking, shirt untucked, sunglasses on at 9 p.m. She lied. Lied to my face. Lied to my kids. Lied to the world. And she was damn proud of it. But the police? That was the last straw. She didn't just cheat. She didn't just betray. She tried to erase me. Erase the man who built this life with her. Who carried her through her father's funeral, her postpartum depression, her failed business ideas. And this is how she repaid me? I didn't kidnap Dylan. But after what happened, after what she said, I kind of wish I had. And that's just the beginning. The night after the police dropped those charges and let me out on bond, I sat in my truck, staring at our house from the street like a stranger. Porch lights on, curtains drawn. Same flower pots she insisted I keep alive even though she couldn't care less about them. It all looked normal, but nothing was normal anymore. You ever get that gut feeling? The one that creeps in slowly, whispering that something's off, but you ignore it because the truth would tear your world apart? Yeah, I had that feeling for months. It started subtle. Jessica began working late more often. She said her boss gave her more responsibility. Funny how responsibility looked a lot like new lingerie and gym selfies with quotes like, "Strong is the new sexy." I mean, what the hell happened to date nights and cooking lasagna together in sweatpants? She also stopped touching me. Not in a dramatic, yelling kind of way. Just slowly. First it was no morning kisses. Then it was pulling away when I reached for her hand during movies. Then, silence in bed. One night, I walked in from work and found her on the phone, laughing. That kind of laugh women use when they're feeling cute and dangerous at the same time. She noticed me and turned away like she was hiding it. "Who was that?" I asked. "Relax, Eric," she sighed. "It's Stacy from yoga." But I heard it. A male voice. Deep. Confident. Not Stacy. I should have pushed harder. But I didn't. You know why? Because when a man suspects his wife is lying, it's easier to bury it than to dig it up and ruin everything. A few days later, I was folding laundry. Yeah, I did that. And I found a hotel key card in the pocket of her jeans. No brand. Just room 214, printed in tiny letters on a worn corner. I held that thing like it was radioactive. My chest hurt. My throat closed. But when I showed it to her, she laughed in my face. "Oh my God, Eric. It's from Stacy's bachelorette party," she said, rolling her eyes. "Seriously? Are you spying on my pants now?" She flipped it so smoothly. Like I was the crazy one. I even apologized. That night, I lay next to her while she scrolled on her phone with her back to me. I watched the glow of the screen light up her face. She smiled. Not once did she look at me. I realized I didn't know who was making her smile anymore. Then came the gym obsession. She used to complain about sweating. Suddenly, she had 2 memberships. New outfits. Matching bras and leggings. She stopped eating pasta. Jessica stopped eating pasta. That's when I knew it was serious. I followed her one day. Yeah, I became that guy. She didn't go to the gym. She went to the Lakeside Inn. I watched from the parking lot as she walked in wearing her gym clothes and heels. An hour later, Dylan strolled out first. Cocky. Careless. Adjusting his watch like he didn't just defile a man's marriage. She followed 10 minutes later. Hair tousled. Lipstick refreshed. And still I did nothing. You know why? Because confronting her meant facing the truth. That the woman I gave 15 years to had turned into a stranger who lied without blinking. But that would change. I wouldn't stay quiet much longer. And when I did finally speak, when I finally acted, Jessica would wish she'd never messed with a man who had nothing left to lose. The day I finally lost it started like any other, quiet resentment over coffee and eggs I made for myself. Jessica was already gone by 6:30 a.m., claiming she had an early spin class. Her gym bag was packed the night before, and she even left her favorite perfume on the dresser like some twisted token of innocence. I didn't buy it. I opened the laptop, logged into our shared phone account. Yeah, I know, call it insecure or obsessive, but what I saw made my stomach flip. Dozens of late-night calls to a number saved as Coach Dylan. Midnight texts. Emojis. Hearts. Can't wait to feel your strength again, flexed biceps, winking face. Strength, huh? I nearly crushed the mug in my hand. I wrote the number down, called it from a burner app one downloaded the night before, just in case. A woman picked up. Hello. Wrong number? Hi, is this Dylan's phone? I asked, steadying my voice. Oh, you must be looking for him. This is his girlfriend, Ava. Who's this? I froze. My mouth went dry. Girlfriend? Just a friend, I muttered. Wrong number. Sorry. I hung up and stared at the screen for a long time. So he had a girlfriend, too. Just like Jessica had a husband. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was being played by two selfish liars, and now I had proof. I drove straight to the Lakeside Inn. I didn't even care anymore. Room 214. I asked the guy at the front desk if he could help me surprise my wife. Dropped a $50 bill with a nervous smile. People don't say no to cash. He slid me the key like it was a favor for love. I walked up those stairs, palms sweating, heart pounding like a war drum. I had no idea what I'd see behind that door, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I opened the door. They weren't in bed. Jessica was on the armchair, legs spread, wearing the black robe I bought her last Valentine's Day. Dylan stood behind her shirtless, massaging her shoulders like they were the king and queen of betrayal. She saw me first. Her face didn't twist in horror, no? She rolled her eyes. Oh, great. Eric, she muttered. You're seriously stalking me now? Dylan stepped forward. Yo man, relax. Don't make this weird. Don't make this weird? I almost laughed. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, watching them, memorizing every second. Jessica leaned back in the chair, completely unbothered. This is why I had to step away. You're always so dramatic. You're not even man enough to talk things through like an adult. Always spying. Always sulking. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I lunged, grabbed Dylan by the neck, and slammed him into the wall before he even knew what was happening. Years of gym membership and alpha lover crap didn't save him from a husband with nothing left to lose. He screamed. She screamed. I let him go. And then I left. No words. No goodbye. Just slammed the door behind me and drove home in silence, hands shaking, mind buzzing like static. 3 hours later, the cops showed up at my garage. And now you know the rest. She told the world I kidnapped him. Told our kids I was mentally unstable. Told anyone who would listen that I was jealous because Dylan was superior. But what she didn't know was, I'd already planned my comeback. She wanted war. She'd get war. After the arrest, after the fingerprinting, after the humiliation of being called a kidnapper by my own kids, I went quiet. Not weak. Not broken. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before a storm. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just waited. Jessica didn't visit me while I was in holding. Not even a phone call. But her lawyer sure did. A smug little man named Thomas Reed, who wore $1,000 suits and smelled like expensive lies. Jessica wants to move forward, he said, sliding a paper across the scratch table. If you agree to sign the temporary custody documents, she'll consider dropping the complaint regarding Dylan. I stared at him for a full minute. Then, slowly, I pushed the paper back toward him. Tell her I'll see her in hell. And then I smiled. Because I knew something Jessica didn't. I had proof. Not just feelings. Not just screenshots or guesses. Actual proof. Hotel records, text logs, timestamps. And I had one more card left to play. The day I got home, I didn't go inside. I sat in my truck out front, just watching. Dylan's car was in the driveway. That piece of garbage had moved in already, barely a week after the cops dropped the charges against me for lack of evidence. He was mowing my lawn. in my shoes. I watched him with a weird kind of calm. It was like watching a raccoon dig through your trash, annoying, pathetic, and laughable. Jessica came outside wearing one of my shirts, tied at the waist, like she was 20 again. She kissed him, right there, in front of the house. And I knew what I had to do. I waited until the weekend. Jessica had no idea I still had access to the home security system. I logged in, turned the cameras back on, set one in the hallway, another in the living room, and, most importantly, the master bedroom. You see, while she was out there playing house with her alpha lover, I was building my case. And when the footage started rolling, well, let's just say the coach had performance issues. She berated him, mocked him, called him a downgrade with muscles. I guess the novelty was wearing off. That Sunday, I invited her to meet at a neutral spot, a quiet park where our kids used to feed ducks before our world turned toxic. She came alone, confident and condescending. "What now, Eric?" she said, arms folded, like I was some annoying mosquito buzzing in her new designer life. I handed her a flash drive. "What's this?" she asked. "Everything." She plugged it into her phone with an adapter. Yeah, I knew she carried one, and her face changed. First smirk, then confusion, then rage. "You sick creep. You had cameras in the house. That's illegal." "No," I said. "It's my house. Still in my name. Still my property. And now, it's evidence." She stood there trembling, not with fear. No, Jessica didn't do fear, but with fury. The kind a cornered liar feels when her lies start to collapse. "You think this will fix what you did?" she hissed. "You embarrassed me. You ruined everything. You made me feel trapped for years, Eric." I stepped closer. "No, Jessica. You ruined everything. And now, I'm just giving the world the truth. You want to lie to my kids? Fine. But the truth has a way of crawling out, one recording at a time." She slapped me, right across the face. And I smiled, because the camera I wore on my jacket caught everything. And that was just the beginning. I didn't expect to see my kids so soon after the park incident. Jessica had always been the master manipulator, the kind of woman who could convince a priest to sin and smile while doing it. I assumed she'd keep them away from me until she could spin a story that made her the victim and me the lunatic. But I was wrong. 3 days later, Caleb showed up at my apartment. Alone. I opened the door and he just stood there, hands buried in the front pocket of his hoodie, eyes low. "You gonna let me in, or?" he mumbled. "Yeah, of course. Come in." He dropped his backpack on the couch and sat, stiff, like he didn't know where to begin. I didn't push. I just grabbed us both a soda from the fridge and sat across from him. "She said you were violent," he finally said. "That you kidnapped her boyfriend and tried to kill him." I nodded. "That's what she told everyone." "Did you?" "No." He looked down again, picking at the label of the bottle. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Dad." That cut deeper than anything Jessica had said. I reached for the folder I kept under the coffee table. Copies of everything. Screenshots. Videos. The printed receipts from the hotel. Even her voice, recorded calling Dylan a useless toy when she thought no one was watching. I didn't say anything. Just handed it to him. He looked through it in silence for almost 10 minutes. Then he spoke. "She told me you were jealous. That you couldn't handle her finding someone stronger. That you were insecure." I was insecure, I admitted. But not because he was stronger. Because I trusted her. And she burned that trust to the ground. He didn't cry. Caleb was like me. Kept it bottled up, tight and silent. But I saw his jaw clench, his shoulders tense. "She let Dylan sleep in your bed," he whispered. "She told me you were a loser. Said you didn't try hard enough to keep her happy." That's when I realized Jessica hadn't just tried to erase me from her life. She'd tried to poison my own children against me. That was her final revenge. "You ever wonder why I left?" I asked him. He nodded. "It wasn't because of the cheating. It wasn't even the lies. It was because she stopped being a mother. When someone stops protecting their kids, they stop being human." He swallowed hard. "She said you were dangerous." I leaned forward. "And yet here you are? Do I look dangerous?" He shook his head. "No. You look tired." I smiled sadly. That's closer to the truth than she'll ever admit. Caleb stayed the night. We didn't talk much after that. We watched reruns of Breaking Bad, ate frozen pizza, and fell asleep with the TV still on. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. The next morning, my daughter Emma called. She was crying. Jessica had screamed at her when she asked about the videos. Said I was hacking her life. Called her a traitor. I told Emma to come stay with me. And that's when the real collapse began. Jessica lost control of the narrative. The perfect image she painted started cracking. Friends started pulling away. Her own sister texted me. I had no idea it was this bad. I'm so sorry. But the best part? Dylan left her. She came home one day, and he was gone. No note, no goodbye. Just vanished, like the coward he was. And Jessica? She spiraled. Drunk voicemails at 2 a.m. Emails titled, "You ruined my life." One message just said, "I hope you choke on your truth." But I wasn't choking. I was breathing again. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt like a man my kids could still be proud of. 2 weeks after Dylan disappeared from Jessica's life, I got a call from her. I let it ring out the first time, and the second, but by the third call, curiosity won. I answered, putting the phone on speaker just in case she tried anything slick. "Eric," she said. Her voice sounded different. Shaky. Small. Like the fire was finally dying out. I didn't speak. Just listened. "I know I messed up," she started, followed by a long, self-pitying sigh. I didn't expect him to leave. Not like that. Not after everything I gave up. There it was, everything I gave up. Not an apology. Not regret. Just more of that self-absorbed garbage she wrapped herself in like perfume. "You mean everything you destroyed?" I corrected. Silence. "I just thought maybe we could talk," she said quietly. "For the kids. Maybe even dinner." I actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound that startled even me. "Jessica, you dragged my name through the mud. Had me arrested. Told our kids I was unstable. And now you want dinner." I was angry. I didn't know what else to do. "You embarrassed me." "No," I cut her off. "You embarrassed yourself." I just turned on the light. She started crying. Real tears. Maybe. But they didn't hit me like they used to. They felt rehearsed, like a monologue from a bad soap opera. "I lost everything, Eric," she sobbed. "My friends won't talk to me. My job is on the line. Dylan's gone. And the kids, they barely look at me." Good, I thought. But I didn't say it. I just let her sit in that silence. Let her hear what it felt like to be truly alone. "Maybe now," I said finally, "you understand what it feels like to be discarded, to be humiliated, to be seen as nothing but an obstacle." I ended the call. That night, I stood in the kitchen, looking out the window. Emma was sitting on the porch, sketching in her notebook. Caleb was inside playing video games, yelling at someone over his headset. And I was still healing. But it wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about identity. About rediscovering the man I had buried under years of compromise, silence, and walking on eggshells for a woman who never deserved any of it. In the following days, I started doing things I hadn't done in years. I went fishing with my brother. I fixed the back deck. I took Emma to her first driving lesson. I even joined a boxing gym, not because I was angry, but because I needed to sweat out the pieces of her still clinging to my skin. Jessica tried reaching out a few more times, always with some new excuse, always with some fresh version of the story where she wasn't the villain, just misunderstood. But I didn't respond anymore. Not to the texts, not to the calls, not to the voice notes that began with "I was drinking" or "I just needed to hear your voice." She was no longer a storm in my life. She was background noise. One afternoon, I received a manila envelope in the mail. Inside was a short note from Jessica, scrawled in rushed handwriting. "You win. I'll sign the divorce papers." Underneath, the documents. Signed. No conditions. No demands. Just a signature, finally accepting the end. I placed the papers on the table, sat down, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. It was over. The cheating, the manipulation, the lies. But what came next was mine to build. From the ground up. You don't realize how broken you've become until you start putting yourself back together. After Jessica signed the papers, I wasn't happy. Not right away. I didn't throw a party or crack open a bottle of scotch like in the movies. I just sat in my kitchen, staring at that signature, feeling empty. 15 years with someone, even if it turns out they were a nightmare in heels, leaves a dent in your soul. But something strange happened the next morning. I woke up, no tension in my jaw, no pit in my stomach, no pretending. Just silence. Real, peaceful silence. For the first time in years, the air in the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath. I made breakfast for the kids, real breakfast. Eggs, toast, bacon, and orange juice that wasn't from concentrate. Caleb came down first. He looked at the table, and blinked like he'd stepped into the wrong house. "You okay, Dad?" I smiled. "Yeah, I think I actually am." Emma joined us a minute later. She didn't say anything, just hugged me, tight and long, the kind of hug that says all the things teenagers don't know how to say out loud. That moment, that one hug, meant more to me than anything Jessica had said in the last 5 years. And that's when I knew I hadn't just lost a wife. I'd reclaimed a fatherhood that was slipping through my fingers. I started therapy, something I'd always brushed off as not my thing. But sitting across from someone who didn't know Jessica, who didn't judge me, who just listened, it changed everything. The therapist told me something that stuck. "You didn't fail. You stayed." She left. Those 7 words undid years of self-blame. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the weak one. I was the man who stayed loyal to a sinking ship, hoping it could still float. I also started writing. Nothing fancy, just journaling my thoughts. Every memory, every betrayal, every red flag I ignored, I wrote them down. And through those pages, I started seeing a version of myself I hadn't met in a long time. Confident, clear-headed, focused. One night, while cleaning out the garage, I found a box of old photos, back when Jessica and I were happy, or at least pretending well. Our wedding, the birth of Caleb, a vacation in Colorado. For a moment, the ache returned. But instead of letting it drag me under, I burned them. Every last one. Not out of hate, out of release. It was symbolic, saying goodbye to the illusion, to the mask she wore so well, letting the fire consume what I no longer needed to carry. I also started reconnecting with people I'd pushed away. My brother and I went for beers. Old college friends reached out after hearing about the divorce. Apparently, Jessica's spiral had made the rounds faster than wildfire in a dry forest. "She always gave me bad vibes," one of them said. "Glad you're free now." Yeah, free. That word hit different now. I wasn't just free from her. I was free from who I became trying to keep her. I found joy in small things again. Building shelves, mowing the lawn, teaching Emma how to parallel park without losing my mind. I even got a dog, a German shepherd named Duke. Loyal, sharp, and honest with his emotions. Everything Jessica wasn't. Most of all, I began trusting my gut again. The same gut that tried to warn me back when she started wearing lipstick to the gym. The truth is, betrayal doesn't just hurt because someone cheats on you. It hurts because it makes you question your own judgment. But the moment you reclaim your voice, your space, your dignity, that's when healing begins. And that's where I was. Not a victim, not a survivor. A man, standing in the ashes, building something real for the first time in years. It's strange how life finds its balance. One minute you're sitting in a jail cell, falsely accused of kidnapping a clown in gym shorts. And the next, you're standing in your backyard, flipping burgers while your kids laugh around a fire pit. That night felt like closure. Emma was telling some story about a kid in her art class who brought a ferret in his backpack. Caleb was doing his awful British accent, and I just watched them, really watched them, and thought, they're okay. I didn't lose them. Jessica tried her best to poison them, to twist them. But the truth always finds a way, doesn't it? She still sends messages. Not many now, just the occasional, "I miss how things were," or "Tell the kids I said hi." I never respond. That chapter's sealed, locked, and buried. She lost more than a husband. She lost her children's respect. She lost the mask she wore for years. And the irony? The man she blew up her life for, the superior alpha lover, blocked her and moved to Florida. I heard he's coaching moms now. Poetic. As for me, I didn't start dating right away. I needed to know who I was without a ring on my finger or a lie in my house. It took time. Therapy. Late nights staring at the ceiling. Questions like, what did I miss? How did I let it get this far? But eventually, I stopped looking back. Because the past is a trap, one Jessica lived in, and I refused to die in. One afternoon, I met a woman named Rachel at the bookstore. She was standing in the same aisle, psychology and trauma healing, which tells you a lot about the people life brings your way when you're ready. We talked. Not about pain. Not about exes. Just books. Life. Laughs. She had this calm about her, like a lake before sunrise. No drama. No lies. She asked me about my story eventually, and I told her the truth, the whole brutal mess. She didn't flinch. She just listened. And then she said something I'll never forget. You can't control who breaks you, but you decide who helps you rebuild. That stuck with me. Still does. I'm not bitter. Not anymore. Yeah, Jessica was a storm. A hurricane in heels. But even storms clear the air. After the destruction, you get to rebuild stronger, wiser, sharper. And if I had to give any advice to someone walking the road I did, it's this. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it is. Don't let sweet words cover sour actions. Don't silence your instincts to protect someone else's comfort. Keep receipts. Not for revenge. For protection. When the lies come, and they will, truth will be your shield. Protect your peace. Leave if it costs you your dignity. Stay if there's honesty. But the second someone makes you feel like an option in a story you help build, walk. And finally, forgive, but never forget. Forgiveness is for you. It's how you drop the weight. But forgetting? That's how history repeats itself. I'm not the same man who stood in that garage with cuffs on his wrists and confusion in his eyes. I'm the man who survived it. I'm the man who rebuilt his life, piece by piece, with scars that tell a story, not of weakness, but of war, and the peace that followed. And if Jessica ever wonders what became of me, let her wonder, because the best revenge is a life well lived. You ever felt invisible in a room full of people who claimed to love you? That's how my birthday started. I was sitting alone at a table meant for 20. The cake was melting, the candles burning too fast, and not a single damn chair was filled. My name was spelled out in balloons, and the only thing they spelled was humiliation. I got the text 2 hours before the dinner was supposed to start. First from my mom. Honey, we're going to Jake's barbecue instead. He said it's a big one. Then my sister chimed in. It's just a birthday, Dylan. Jake's party is for networking. You'll understand. And then, like poison wrapped in perfume, came the final dagger from my wife. A birthday party for a guy who fixes gutters? Embarrassing. You're too dramatic anyway. She even threw in a laughing emoji. That's how 12 years of marriage were reduced to a meme. I just stared at her message and replied. Cool. Don't say I didn't warn you. That was it. No begging. No arguing. I had my plan. I hired a photographer, rented out the most luxurious rooftop lounge in the city, filled it with string lights and silent speakers, catered top-tier food, and sent out every invitation weeks ago. I gave them a chance to show up. They didn't. But when the sun went down and the skyline started glowing, people came. Not them. Strangers. Business contacts. A couple of influencers I'd met while fixing a water feature in some Hollywood producer's house. Hell, even the mayor's assistant showed up with a bottle of champagne. And I let them in, one by one, with cameras flashing, laughter echoing, and a backdrop that made the place look like a movie set. I stood there in a black suit, tie undone, watching the city flicker while people cheered for my birthday. And then they arrived. Out of breath. Sweaty. Faces pale. My mom, my sister, and trailing behind, in heels too high for real regret, Samantha. She looked around at the crowd, the lights, the photographers, and her expression shifted from confusion to horror in under a second. What the hell is this? She snapped. I took a sip from my glass, leaned back on the railing. Oh, you came? But I thought Jake's barbecue was more important. I didn't know it was like this, she hissed. No one ever does, I replied. That's why people like me get underestimated. Her voice rose like it always did when she was exposed. You planned this just to make us look bad? I smiled. No, sweetheart. I planned this because it's my birthday. The fact that you look bad, well, that's just a side effect of being who you are. Behind her, my sister was checking her phone nervously. My mom was whispering something about how Jake's grill caught fire and the whole event ended early. So they decided to swing by. Convenient. And as the cameras turned to them, seeing Samantha for the first time, watching her panic beneath all that makeup and gold jewelry, I leaned in and whispered. This is just the beginning. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic again. Maybe. Or maybe I've finally stopped being stupid. And I walked away. Not out of pride. Not out of vengeance. But because I had just gotten a tip that made every cell in my body buzz. 10 minutes before they arrived, my friend Marcus, who was supposed to be at Jake's barbecue, sent me a video. Samantha, leaning against the hood of my brother's truck, with my brother's arm around her. And the worst part? She was smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in over a year. I played that video on loop in the back of my mind as I cut the cake, sang along with strangers. Let the night swallow the betrayal like it was champagne. But deep inside, something had cracked. It wasn't just the party. It wasn't just the missed calls or the cheap excuses. It was the fact that I finally saw her for what she really was. And I knew, when the night was over and the music faded, I wasn't going home with a wife. I was going home with a plan. She didn't come home that night. After the rooftop party ended, I drove back in silence. The city lights were still buzzing in my rear view, but everything inside me was dead quiet. You know that moment when something snaps? Not loud, not violent. Just a clean, cold break. That was me. I sat on the edge of our bed, fully dressed, shoes still on, and stared at the door like it might confess something. Midnight passed. Then 1. Then 2. At 3:17 a.m., the front door creaked open. Heels clicked across the hardwood. She thought I'd be asleep. Of course she did. She smelled like perfume and barbecue smoke. "Oh," she said, pretending to be surprised. "You're up." I didn't answer. Just looked at her. She was wearing that red leather jacket she only pulls out when she wants attention. Makeup smudged. Eyes too wide. "I didn't think you'd wait up," she added, like we were just some sitcom couple on a Tuesday night. I still said nothing. Just pressed play. The video lit up my phone screen, and I turned it toward her without a word. Her body stiffened the second she saw herself leaning into Jake, laughing, whispering something into his ear. His hand on her waist. That smile. That goddamn smile. She stared at the video, then at me, and for the first time that night, she didn't have anything smart to say. No sarcasm. No biting jokes. Just silence. Then she tried to laugh it off. "Oh my God. Seriously? That's what this is about." "This," I said slowly, "is about the fact that I spent 12 years building a life with someone who laughs at me behind my back, skips my birthday, and flirts with my brother like it's just a ****ing game." Her eyes narrowed. "You're being paranoid." Then explained the video. People were drunk. He hugged me. It was innocent. Your hand was inside his shirt. She blinked. Okay, yeah, I was drunk. And Jake was being stupid, and I laughed, and it didn't mean anything. I stood up. "You're cheating on me with my brother." "No." She snapped, too quickly. "You always do this. Turn every little thing into some grand betrayal. You're insecure, Dylan. You always have been. That's why you threw yourself this dramatic party. You needed attention. I needed my wife. Well, maybe your wife needed something more than a guy who unclogs gutters for a living." That hit like a brick. She didn't flinch when she said it. No regret. Just that cold, bored expression she'd been wearing for months. Like I was a burden she was waiting to be free of. And then she muttered something under her breath as she walked toward the bathroom. "What did you say?" She paused in the doorway. "I said Jake knows how to make a woman feel alive." You just fix things." I didn't move. I couldn't. That was the moment it stopped hurting. The pain froze into something sharper, cleaner, like a scalpel cutting out the last of the illusion. She closed the door behind her, humming some tune like this wasn't the end of everything. I didn't sleep. Just watched the sunrise through our bedroom window, the same one I'd installed myself 5 years ago when she said she wanted more light in the mornings. Every screw, every inch built by my hands. Like this whole damn marriage. Around 7 a.m., I called a locksmith. By 9, she was locked out. By noon, my lawyer had her full name typed out in bold across a preliminary divorce draft. And still, she texted me later that day. "You're really doing this? Over a video? It wasn't even real. Don't throw us away over some stupid misunderstanding." I didn't answer. Just sent her one photo. The guest list from Jake's barbecue. My name wasn't on it. Hers was. With a +1. Jake. That shut her up. I knew it wouldn't be the last time she tried. Women like her don't leave without clawing back some power. And sure enough, 2 days later, she came to my job, all crocodile tears and soft voice, telling me she missed me, how we could talk about everything. I just looked at her and said, "You laughed at me. Then you lied to me. Now you want to fix me." She reached for my hand, and I pulled it back. "Don't say I didn't warn you," I said, one last time, and turned away. 2 weeks passed. That's how long it took for the rage to settle into something more dangerous, clarity. Not peace. Not healing. Just the cold awareness of who she really was. During that time, she paraded herself like a victim, telling friends I'd lost my mind, telling her mother I was having a breakdown. She even told my boss I was emotionally unstable, trying to get me fired. But I had receipts, screenshots, videos, witnesses. My boss shook my hand and said, "Handle your business, man." She underestimated me. Again. Jake, though, he ghosted me completely. No apology. No phone call. Like his own brother wasn't worth a damn explanation. I heard from someone at the barbecue that they disappeared into the house for almost an hour together. The same house where I used to babysit him while our parents were working night shifts. I went by my parents' house. Thought maybe they'd see things for what they were. Big mistake. Mom opened the door with a fake smile and said, "I wish you'd talk to Samantha. She's hurting." I just stared at her. "She's hurting. She made a mistake," she whispered. "But Dylan, marriage is hard. People slip. She didn't sleep with Jake. She swore." I laughed. Out loud. I couldn't help it. "So let me get this straight. Skipping my birthday to go rub up on your younger son at a barbecue isn't enough for you?" Her face twisted like I just cursed in church. "You're being cruel." "No," I said. "I'm being honest. They picked her." That was the moment I realized. My family chose her. Chose convenience. Chose peace over truth. They didn't want the drama. They wanted it buried. And I was done being the one who kept the dirt off everyone else's shoes. That night, I started packing. Not her stuff, mine. I didn't want the house anymore. The bed we bought on our second anniversary. The kitchen she never cooked in. The garden I built for her, the one she said was too much work to water. Every piece of that place reeked of her perfume and her lies. So I rented a place on the other side of town. Small. Clean. No ghosts. Just quiet. She showed up again 3 days later. This time she banged on the door like the cops. I opened it halfway. Her makeup was perfect. Tight dress. That faked her already building in the corner of her eye. Like she practiced in the mirror before coming. "You moved out." I didn't answer. "You weren't even going to tell me?" Still nothing. I made a mistake, okay? I was drunk. Jake was. He was being flirty, and I got caught up, but nothing happened. I raised an eyebrow. "So the footage of you grinding on him in the kitchen was just interpretive dance?" She flinched, then switched tactics instantly. "This is about your ego. You always wanted to feel like the victim. Ever since you lost your dad, you've used guilt to control people." I smiled. That old trick. Drag up pain, distract from the present. "You can lie to them," I said. "But you're done lying to me. You're really going to throw away a marriage over a mistake?" "No," I said. "I'm throwing it away because you're a liar. And I can't fix people the way I fix gutters." She laughed. "A cold, bitter thing. Good luck finding someone else who will deal with your boring life." I stepped back, let the door start to close. "And good luck finding another man who trusted you." I didn't slam the door. I let it click softly. Final. Like the last line of a book you'll never reread. That night I slept deeper than I had in years. No more waking up to her scrolling Instagram at 2 a.m., pretending not to text someone. No more fake apologies. No more walking on eggshells. Just silence. And inside that silence, a strange, unfamiliar feeling started to grow. Freedom. The calls didn't stop. At first, I let them ring out. Then I blocked her. She made new numbers. Started emailing. Long messages filled with half-hearted apologies mixed with manipulation. "I never meant to hurt you. You were never there for me emotionally. You pushed me to it." And then came the threats. "If you keep telling people lies about me, I'll tell them what really happened." What really happened? She was rewriting history now. Repainting herself as the broken wife, the misunderstood woman married to a man who cared more about gutters than love. She didn't know I'd already sent the video to half my contacts. I didn't say a word in public. Just posted the clip with a caption. "Sometimes, family stabs you smiling." The video went viral in our town. Jake deleted his social media within 24 hours. Samantha went silent online for a week. But offline, she was spiraling. Showing up at my sister's house, crying on her porch, telling anyone who'd listened that I was having a mental collapse. I wasn't breaking down. I was leveling up. See, when you lose everything you thought was real, there's this moment, right after the last illusion shatters, where the world becomes terrifyingly clear. You see the fake friends, the conditional love, the way people only stick around when it's easy. I was done making it easy for them. I filed the divorce papers without warning her. No ceremony. No dramatic conversation. Just a cold envelope slid under her apartment door. She messaged me an hour later. "You couldn't even face me? I faced you the night you called me embarrassing." After that, I went dark. I started therapy. Not the soft kind either, real therapy. The kind where you bleed in the room and walk out lighter. I told the therapist everything. About how I used to wake up earlier just to iron her clothes. How I skipped nights out with friends so I could help her study when she wanted to go back to school, only to quit 2 months in because it was too much pressure. How every birthday, every anniversary, every small gesture I made was met with an eye roll or a "that's it." And still, I blamed myself. For not being exciting enough. for working too much, for being a fixer instead of a dreamer. You know what the therapist said? She wanted a fantasy. You gave her a reality. And people like her hate mirrors. That line stuck. Because it was true. I gave her stability, loyalty, effort. And she wanted noise. Drama. Chaos. Someone who'd treat her like a toy until she broke, and then beg to fix her. Jake was perfect for her. He'd cheat within 6 months. Probably already had. And me? I started over. Slowly. Quietly. Built a new client base. Reconnected with friends. Even had coffee with someone new. No expectations. Just two humans talking. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to prove my worth. I felt seen. Then, out of nowhere, Samantha dropped the final card. She sent me a picture of her holding a positive pregnancy test. No caption. No explanation. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just felt tired. Eventually, I replied, "Congrats. Hope Jake's excited." She didn't respond. I never found out if it was real. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But it didn't matter. She wasn't my problem anymore. Her lies didn't echo in my house. Her perfume didn't stain my clothes. And her voice, shrill, manipulative, cruel, was just a ghost in my past. Sometimes I catch myself wondering how I didn't see it sooner. The way she chipped away at me in small, casual ways. How she weaponized shame. How she made me feel like love was something I had to earn. But then I remind myself, you can love someone and still walk away. You can give them everything and still keep your soul. And sometimes, losing someone is the only way to remember who you are. That's what she gave me in the end. Not love, not loyalty, but freedom wrapped in betrayal. And I took it. 3 months later, I ran into Jake. Didn't plan it. Wasn't ready for it. But fate's got a twisted sense of humor. I was grabbing a coffee downtown, my usual spot, when I heard the laugh. His laugh. That stupid, smug chuckle he always had, like he was proud of some joke only he understood. I turned, and there he was, Jake, leaning on the counter, chatting up the barista like he didn't stab his own brother in the spine. He didn't notice me at first. Maybe I changed. Maybe I finally looked like a man who stopped carrying the weight of everyone else's bullshit. But then his eyes met mine, and everything went quiet. He gave a sheepish little nod, like that would fix anything. I didn't nod back. I walked up slowly, ordered my coffee, and said nothing. He cleared his throat behind me. "Dylan, look, man, I know things got out of hand." I turned my head just slightly. "Got out of hand?" He shifted. "I didn't mean for anything to happen. It happened." "You mean my wife happened to land on your lap?" "Come on, man. Don't man me." He took a step back, hands raised. "All right. Fine. I screwed up. But Samantha told me you two were on the rocks. That she felt trapped. She made it seem like you were, Don't you dare," I said, voice low. "Don't you dare try to throw this on me. You knew what you were doing. You knew it was wrong. You knew I trusted you." He didn't speak. For once, he had no comeback. No spin. No joke. "You want forgiveness?" I asked. "Earn it. Live with it. Feel it. Every time someone calls you out, every time you lie awake wondering why you did it, remember my face." I took my coffee and left. Didn't even look back. Because in that moment, I realized he wasn't worth my rage anymore. Neither of them were. You can't heal if you keep picking at scabs. And I was done bleeding for people who never deserved my heart. Later that week, I got a letter in the mail. From Samantha. A real letter. Written in cursive on some overpriced paper, sprayed with that perfume she used to drown herself in. The letter was a mix of guilt, nostalgia, and desperation. She said she missed our talks. Missed our routines. Missed the way I made her feel safe. "I didn't appreciate it then," she wrote. "I thought I wanted adventure. But I just ended up lost." And at the bottom, in tiny print, "I think the baby was a false alarm. Not a word about Jake. Not a word about what came next." She wanted a response. Closure. I didn't give her one. I burned the letter. Not out of spite. Out of mercy. For myself. You don't owe explanations to people who chose betrayal. You don't owe kindness to those who used your love like currency. At some point, you stop being the guy trying to save a drowning woman who jumped into the water with bricks in her pockets. You swim to shore. And never look back. I finished the divorce quietly. No fights. No drama. She didn't contest. Maybe because she thought she could win me back later. Or maybe she knew she'd already lost. A month after it was final, I got invited to a wedding an old friend from high school. I almost didn't go, but something told me I should. I showed up late, grabbed a drink, and stood near the back, just watching, laughing quietly to myself. And then, this woman walked up beside me. She smiled, nodded toward the dance floor, and said, "They look like they actually like each other. Rare these days." I chuckled. Yeah, real love's not loud. It just is. She introduced herself. Claire. Funny. Sharp. Kinda awkward in the best way. We talked until the music stopped. And for the first time since Samantha, Jake, my family, I felt something shift. Not fireworks. Not obsession. Just peace. No pretending. No games. Just two people. Talking. And for now, that was enough. We met again a week later. Claire invited me to this little bookstore cafe that smelled like cinnamon and old paper. She wore a gray hoodie, hair up, no makeup, and still looked like something pulled out of the part of life I forgot existed. The soft part. The kind that doesn't need to be loud to be real. We didn't talk about relationships. Not yet. Just music, dumb movies, why cold pizza is better than hot, and how neither of us could understand how people could just hurt each other for fun. And yeah, I thought about Samantha, but not in a way that burned anymore. More like a scar you forget until something brushes against it. Then it stings for a second and fades again. I didn't tell Claire everything right away. I didn't dump the baggage. I wanted her to know me, not the version of me left behind after betrayal. And she didn't push. She just listened when I hinted at things. Nodded when I paused like I wasn't sure I should keep going. She made space for silence. That's what struck me most. No one had ever done that before. Not even Samantha. With her, silence was a threat. An accusation. A weapon. With Claire, it was comfort. 3 dates in, she finally asked. So, what happened? I looked at her, expecting judgment, bracing for pity. But she just sipped her tea, legs tucked under her. I soft. My wife cheated, I said. With my brother. She blinked once. That's it. And I let it happen for longer than I should have. Because I didn't want to believe what I saw. Because I thought love meant sacrifice. Even if you're the only one bleeding. Claire didn't say anything right away. Then she reached across the table, touched my hand, and whispered, "That's not love. That's martyrdom." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the first time someone had said it out loud. She didn't try to fix it. Didn't offer cliches. Just held my hand for a few seconds and said, "I'm glad you left." So was I. A couple months passed. We took it slow. No labels, no pressure. Just two people walking around bookstores, drinking wine in quiet kitchens, watching storms through the window, and not needing to talk over them. One night, we were cooking dinner at her place, some disaster of a stir-fry that ended up half on the floor, and I caught myself staring at her, really staring. She was barefoot, hair messy, laughing like no one was watching. And I realized. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of love. Not of trusting again. Not of waking up and finding her gone. Because if she left, it wouldn't be because I wasn't enough. It'd just be life. And that's the difference. When Samantha left emotionally, long before she ever touched Jake, she made me believe it was my fault. That I was boring, too safe, not man enough to keep her attention. But Claire? She made me feel like breathing wasn't a job. One night, Samantha tried one last time. She showed up at my old place, where my cousin lives now, and left a note for him to give to me. He sent me a photo of it before throwing it out. It said, "I miss us. I miss your calm. Jake was a mistake. We could still fix this." That night, I lay next to Claire while she slept, her hand resting lightly on my chest. And I smiled. Because the only thing I missed was myself. The version of me that Samantha tried to erase. The man who showed up. The man who gave everything. The man who rebuilt himself not out of revenge, but out of love for the peace she never gave me. So if you're reading this, and you're in the middle of your own storm, let me tell you something I wish someone told me. You're not too much. You're not too quiet. You're not too steady. You're just with someone who doesn't recognize the kind of love that doesn't explode, but holds. The kind that stays. And when you find it, you'll finally understand what it means to come home. A few months after Claire and I got serious, something strange started happening. I stopped checking the rearview mirror. Not literally. I still looked over my shoulder when I drove. But emotionally, mentally, I just didn't care about what was behind me anymore. I wasn't carrying Samantha in my mind like a ghost in the passenger seat. I wasn't waiting for another message, another trick, another apology soaked in manipulation. I was present. Finally. One morning, Claire and I went hiking just outside the city. It wasn't planned. She just nudged me at 6 a.m., I still half closed, and whispered, "Let's go somewhere with trees." I was about to argue, tell her I had work, that I hadn't had coffee, that my knees hated inclines, but then I looked at her. No makeup. Hoodie half-zipped. And that grin, mischievous, like she already knew I'd say yes. So we went. And somewhere between the trailhead and the overlook, with the fog curling around our shoes and birds making noise like they were laughing at us, I realized I didn't miss my old life at all. The fancy rooftop party. The chasing. The begging. The trying to be enough for someone who treated my love like leftovers. That wasn't love. That was survival. Claire reached out, took my hand, and said nothing. Just squeezed it. Like she knew what I was thinking without asking. That's the thing about real connection. It doesn't demand. It recognizes. A few days later, I ran into my sister at a gas station. She looked tired, frazzled. Her smile was nervous, like she wasn't sure if I'd tell her to go to hell. Instead, I just nodded. She walked over slowly. "Hey," she said. "You look good." "Thanks," I replied. A long pause. She fiddled with her keys. I didn't know what to say back then. Everything happened so fast. I didn't want to pick sides. "You didn't have to pick a side," I said calmly. "You just had to call out what was wrong. And you didn't." Her eyes welled up. "I know. I was scared." "You're still scared." She looked down. "How do you do it?" "Let go." I thought about it. Then I said, "You don't let go of the pain. You just hold on to something better." She nodded slowly, whispered, "I'm sorry," and walked away. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. She didn't betray me the way Samantha and Jake did, but she stood by while they did. That's its own kind of betrayal. But I understood. People don't always show up the way you want them to. Doesn't mean you carry them with you forever. You just learn who's worth the wait. Claire and I kept building something. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was made of quiet mornings, shared playlists, holding hands in grocery stores, and laughing at dumb shows on the couch. It was made of peace. One night, we were lying in bed, lights off, room quiet except for the hum of the street outside. I turned to her and said, "Thank you." She smiled in the dark. "For what?" "For reminding me who I am." She leaned over, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "You never left. You were just waiting to be seen." I don't know what the future holds. I don't pretend love will always be easy. But now, I know the difference between fighting for someone and fighting to be loved by someone. And I'll never make that mistake again. Because the truth is, when someone loves you, really loves you, they don't laugh at your dreams. They don't miss your birthday for a barbecue. They don't call you dramatic for feeling hurt. They show up. They see you. They stay. And that's all I ever needed. The end came quietly. Not with fire, not with revenge. Just a simple, steady peace I never thought I'd feel again. I was sitting on the back porch of the place Claire and I now shared. She was inside, making tea, humming a song I didn't recognize. The sun was setting, casting this golden wash over everything. And for the first time in a long time, my chest didn't feel tight. No bitterness. No questions. No what-ifs. Just stillness. My phone buzzed beside me. Unknown number. I ignored it. A few minutes later, a message came through. "Hope you're happy. Just wanted to say that." I didn't even have to check who it was. I could feel her ghost in the tone. That half-sincere, half-manipulative blend Samantha had mastered. But I didn't respond. Not because I was angry. Because I finally didn't care. She'd be fine. She'd latch onto someone new. Maybe Jake. Maybe not. Maybe she'd destroy the next man the way she tried to destroy me. Or maybe she'd finally look in the mirror and see the wreckage she left behind. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was here. With Claire. With the sound of the wind nudging the trees. With a future that didn't have betrayal hiding in the walls. With love that didn't come with conditions or competition. She came out with 2 mugs, sat beside me, leaned her head on my shoulder. We didn't speak for a while. Then she whispered, "You okay?" And I nodded. "Yeah, for the first time. I really am." She smiled, eyes closed. And just like that, I knew. The best revenge isn't anger. It's healing. It's waking up one day and realizing you're no longer haunted. It's building a life so full, so honest, so good, that the people who tried to break you wouldn't even recognize the man you've become. And I never looked back. That's how this nightmare started. Not with a cake, not with candles, but with her lips on his. In front of the fridge I paid for. In the house I built. In the moment his lips left hers, and he turned to smirk at me, my fist connected with his jaw so hard, I swear I felt the bones shatter like ceramic. He dropped. Just like that. Blood hit the floor before the wine glass did. Natalie screamed. Not because she was sorry, not because she was scared, but because I ruined her moment. She ran toward him, heels clicking across the tile like it was some movie scene. She knelt beside him, touched his swollen face, then whipped her head around and screamed at me like I was the one who did something wrong. Jason, what the hell is wrong with you? Are you insane? Insane? I dropped my keys on the counter slowly, breathing hard, staring at her like I didn't even know her anymore. Maybe I didn't. You're asking me what's wrong? I said, my voice lower than I expected. I come home early on my ing birthday, and I find you tongue deep in Mr. Startup's mouth, and I'm the one who's lost it? He was just saying goodbye. Yeah. I nodded at Calvin, who was now moaning on the floor like a dying animal. You always say goodbye with your eyes closed and your hips pressed together? She scoffed and stood up, brushing her dress smooth like it was me who had made a mess. You've been emotionally unavailable for months, Jason. I needed comfort. He gives me that. Something you used to. There it was. The lie wrapped in a guilt trip. The classic manipulative spin. I work 12-hour days, Natalie, I said. So you can drive that SUV. So we can live in this house. So you can find yourself on yoga retreats. And this is how you say thank you. She tilted her head, as if I had said something pathetic. No, Jason. This is how I survive you. I laughed. I actually laughed, the kind that doesn't come from humor, but from that breaking point where pain and shock meet disbelief. Calvin let out a whimper. He was drooling blood now, and I honestly hoped he choked on it. But I didn't touch him again. Natalie grabbed her phone and called someone. I didn't care who. Probably her sister. Maybe her lawyer. Maybe even the cops. I stood there, staring at the counter where she'd placed a half-melted birthday cake with a single candle already burned out. That's when I noticed the card. It said, "Happy birthday, babe," in her handwriting. Inside, she wrote, "To another year of us." That card was sitting on the same counter where she kissed another man 5 minutes before I walked in. She lied with the same hand she used to write those words. The same lips that kissed me goodnight 2 days ago just finished kissing Calvin Monroe like I was already dead to her. I turned away. I had nothing left to say. And then she said the one thing I'll never forget. You're embarrassing, Jason. You couldn't satisfy me emotionally, and you sure as hell can't do it physically either. You've been a placeholder for months. I froze in the doorway. A placeholder. 10 years. 2 homes. 1 miscarriage. 3 anniversaries I spent planning down to the last flower. And to her, I was just a warm seat until her promotion came with a C**CK attached. I didn't say another word. I walked past Calvin's body, out the front door, and slammed it behind me so hard the framed wedding photo by the stairs crashed to the floor. That night, I didn't sleep. I drove for hours. Around midnight, I parked in an empty Target lot and just sat there, watching my phone light up with her texts. Come home. You're overreacting. You hit my boss. That's assault. We need to talk. No, Natalie. We don't. Because tonight, you showed me who you really are. And now I need to figure out who the hell I've been sleeping next to all these years. The next morning, I sat in my car outside the house, engine off, windows fogged from my breath. I hadn't moved in hours. I didn't know what I was expecting. That she'd be gone? That she'd come outside crying, begging? No, Natalie wasn't that type. She was cold, calculated. The kind of woman who could plan a surprise party while planning an affair in the same kitchen. I walked back in like a ghost. The house felt different. Not physically. Everything was where it should be. But emotionally, it was hollow. Lifeless. Like all the warmth had been sucked out and replaced with ice. She was in the kitchen again. Alone this time. Wearing my old hoodie. Drinking coffee like nothing had happened. You look like crap, she said, not even glancing up. I ignored that. Walked past her to the fridge. Tried to grab some orange juice like this was just a normal morning. You gonna say anything? She added, leaning on the counter. I sharp. You want me to thank you? I asked. Or just pretend you didn't tongue your boss 5 feet from our wedding china? She sighed. Loudly. Like I was exhausting her. Jason, you're being dramatic. It wasn't like that. Oh, really? I turned, bottle in hand. Because from where I stood, it looked exactly like that. Should I roll back the security footage so we can analyze your tongue technique? That got her. For a split second, her expression cracked. You've been spying on me? No. I installed the damn cameras after we got robbed 2 years ago. You remember? Or were you too busy flirting in board meetings? She crossed her arms, that defensive stance she always took when cornered. It was a moment, she said finally. One stupid moment. It's not like we slept together. You want a medal for stopping at first base? You think you're perfect? She shot back. You think working late every night, coming home smelling like stress and silence, made this house a joy to live in? Wow, I muttered. So now I'm the villain because I worked my A** off to keep the lights on. You worked your A** off to avoid me, she snapped. Don't act like this came out of nowhere. I shook my head. You didn't cheat because I was distant. You cheated because you're selfish. You wanted attention, and the second someone gave it to you, you spread your legs. She slapped me. It wasn't a hard slap, more like a reflex, but it hung in the air between us like a final nail in the coffin. I stepped back, stared at her. This is who you are now, I whispered. She didn't answer, just stared at me, breathing heavily, jaw clenched. I want you out, I said finally. Her eyes widened, but just for a second. This is my house too. Not anymore. Call your boss, tell him his jaw cost you your address. She looked like she might fight back, but then she just laughed. Cold. Dry. You're pathetic, she said. You think kicking me out changes anything? You're still the same miserable man you were yesterday. I just stopped pretending. And then she walked upstairs. I sat down at the kitchen table, across from the spot where she betrayed me, where she stood with another man's mouth on hers like I never existed. Max patted in and laid his head on my foot. At least someone still remembered who belonged here. I picked up my phone. 30 unread messages. Some from her. Some from Calvin, believe it or not. One even said, let's talk man to man. As if his jaw wasn't already a message. I deleted them all. The house was quiet now. Too quiet. And I knew, for the first time, that quiet wasn't peace. It was the echo of a love that died long before I caught her in the act. She didn't leave. Not that night. Not the next day. She walked around like she owned the place, as if nothing had happened. She still used my shower. Still left her makeup clutter across the bathroom sink. Still dropped her heels by the door like they belonged there. She acted like I was the one intruding. Every conversation became a knife fight. Quick, cutting, never clean. I told her to leave. She told me to grow up. I asked if she loved him. She asked if I ever truly loved myself. I should have known then she'd flipped the script in her head, turned herself into the victim, the misunderstood, the poor wife married to a man who couldn't connect. As if betrayal was a coping mechanism. But it wasn't just the kissing. It was everything around it. The way she smiled when she texted lately. The new lingerie that I never saw her wear for me. The way she started wearing perfume to yoga. I started digging. And I didn't have to dig deep. Hotel receipts. Deleted messages she forgot to wipe from her cloud. One photo, him shirtless on a balcony, holding 2 glasses of wine. Her painted toes in the corner of the frame. I stared at that picture for a full minute before my hand started shaking. She'd been lying to my face for months. And worse, she was good at it. The next evening, she came home humming. Yes, humming. As if she'd just come back from a spa, not her boss's apartment. I waited until she kicked off her shoes, then handed her the printout. Just handed it to her. No words. She stared at it. Expression flat. Unmoving. Then she smirked. So now you're going through my stuff? I'm going through the wreckage of our marriage, I replied. You've been unhappy for years, she said, folding the paper like it was a napkin. You just didn't say it out loud. I said it. I acted on it. You cheated, I snapped. Don't dress it up with poetic bullshit *T. Oh please, she hissed. You think I haven't noticed you looking at other women? That blonde waitress at brunch? Your trainer at the gym? I never touched anyone, I said. I never betrayed you. Yeah, she said coldly. But you stopped wanting me. And that was worse. That's when I realized this wasn't about me anymore. This wasn't even about Calvin. This was about her. About a woman so wrapped in her own ego she couldn't imagine being the villain. She needed to feel desired constantly. Needed a crowd applauding her every move. And I wasn't the applause anymore. I was just the man who saw behind the curtain. And that made me dangerous. That night, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Disconnected her card from the joint account. Called the lawyer. She didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just watched me with those cold, calculating eyes like she was already writing a new chapter without me in it. You're making a mistake, she said calmly. No, I said. I made it 10 years ago. I'm just correcting it now. She laughed. Actually laughed. You think you're the hero in this story? No, I said. I'm the guy who finally woke up. I slept on the couch with Max curled at my feet, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something real. Not happiness, not relief, but clarity. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of suitcases being zipped. I didn't say anything at first. Just listened from the living room while she moved around upstairs, opening drawers, slamming closet doors like she was trying to remind the house it still belonged to her. Max lifted his head, ears perked, then rested it back down, like even he was done with the drama. She came down the stairs in leggings and a hoodie, pulling a suitcase behind her like she was heading to a yoga retreat, not walking out of a marriage she just set on fire. She stopped by the door, looked around like she was saying goodbye to the walls. Not to me. I'll be gone for a few days, she said, not even looking me in the eyes. Take your time, I replied, not even looking up from my coffee. I just need space to think. You had plenty of space in that hotel room, I said flatly. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. She opened the door, turned halfway back like she was about to say something important, and then didn't. Just pulled the door shut behind her and disappeared down the driveway. For a second, I thought I'd feel free, but all I felt was empty. Like I'd finally removed a tumor that had been part of me so long I forgot how to feel without it. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not family, not friends. I just let the silence grow. I spent hours sitting in the garage, fixing things that weren't broken, just to keep my hands busy while my mind spiraled. But that silence didn't last. 3 days later, my brother Luke dropped by unannounced. Beer in one hand, concern written all over his face. I heard some sh*t, he said, stepping inside. Tell me it's not true. I didn't speak. Just walked him to the kitchen and pointed at the wine glass still sitting on the counter. The same one she used after kissing her boss. It hadn't moved. Neither had the pain. She cheated, I said quietly. With her boss. On my birthday. He let out a slow exhale, set the beers down, and just nodded. He didn't say sorry. Didn't offer some Hallmark advice. He just sat beside me and cracked a bottle open. You want me to slash his tires? He asked. I smirked for the first time in days. Already considered it. We drank in silence for a while. Just two brothers letting the weight of a destroyed life settle between them. And then Luke asked, You gonna take her back? That question hit harder than I expected. I hadn't even allowed myself to think about that. Because part of me, the wounded, exhausted part, still remembered our wedding day. Still remembered our late-night drives, our stupid traditions, the way she used to rest her head on my chest like it was home. But then I remembered that smirk. That smirk she gave me after I caught her kissing another man in our kitchen. Like I was a joke. Like my pain was a minor inconvenience. No, I said. I'm done. Good, Luke said. Because she never deserved you in the first place. I wanted to believe that. I needed to. Later that night, I got a call from her mom. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Jason, she said softly, she told me what happened. Did she tell you whose mouth she was wrapped around? She sighed. She's my daughter, but I'm not calling to defend her. I just want to say I'm sorry. I didn't raise her to be like this. That caught me off guard. I appreciate that, I said, voice raw. She's staying with us for now, her mom added. I told her she needs to really think about what she's done. She won't listen, of course. She never does. The call ended shortly after. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after that, staring at the place it all went to hell. The room that should have smelled like birthday cake and instead reeked of betrayal. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just breathed. And then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I slept. She came back 5 days later. Didn't call. Didn't text. Just walked in like nothing happened. Like she hadn't burned our marriage to the ground with one kiss and 100 lies. I was in the backyard, watering the dying grass, trying to find comfort in the one thing I could still control. I heard the door open. Then the sound of her heels, always the heels. Click, 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 announcing her presence like a damn metronome counting down to another argument. She stood on the back porch, arms crossed, face unreadable. You changed the locks, she said. Yup. That's illegal. You cheated. She took a step forward, like she was going to try and guilt her way in. I came back to talk. I don't want to talk, I said, turning off the hose. There's nothing left to say. She didn't like that. Her face twisted, not into sadness, but into that same sharp-edged disgust she'd weaponized so many times before. You think you're innocent? She snapped. You think you were some perfect husband? No, I said. But I was loyal. I showed up. I stayed. And you spat on all of it. You stopped being present, Jason. You were here, But not here. You were just this shell. Then leave the shell, I said. But don't drag it behind your back while you crawl into someone else's bed. That shut her up. For a moment. Then she pulled out the envelope. Divorce papers. Signed. She held them out like it was a gift. Like she was doing me the favor. I'm not fighting you, she said. I just want out clean. No lawyers. No dragging it through the dirt. It's already in the dirt, I said, taking the papers. You buried it there. She looked at me, really looked, and I think, for the first time, she realized I was gone. Not just physically, not just emotionally, but truly gone. I wasn't her Jason anymore. I wasn't the doormat or the placeholder or the man trying to hold together a cracked mirror with his bare hands. I was done bleeding for her. She turned to leave. But then, halfway through the door, she paused. You know, Calvin said you'd break. Said you looked like the type of man who'd fall apart the second he got hit. I stared at her, silent. But you didn't, she added, almost with respect. He said I'd break? I asked quietly. She nodded. Good, I said. Because I'm not done hitting. Her face went pale. Not because I threatened her, but because she knew I meant something deeper, something colder. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to rebuild. Without her. Without the lies. And she wouldn't be part of a single page moving forward. She left that night for good. No hugs. No tears. Just silence. I stayed up late going through old photos. Deleted every one that had her smile in it. Boxed up the memories and shoved them into the attic like they were just junk from a failed project. Around 2 a.m., I poured a glass of bourbon and sat outside under the stars. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. The next few days were quiet, but not peaceful. The house was emptier, sure, but it echoed. Not with sounds, with moments. The ghost of her perfume in the hallway. The dent in the pillow beside mine. The wine glass she always left half full on the kitchen island. All still there, like reminders of a woman who used to be my whole world, but ended up being the wrecking ball to it. I didn't cry. Not once. But the grief came in waves. In flashes. I'd be brushing my teeth and suddenly remember the way she used to hum when she did hers. I'd reach for a cup and hear her voice saying, grab mine too, babe. I started drinking from different glasses just to avoid hearing echoes. I met with the lawyer. He asked all the routine questions, but when he got to, what's the reason for divorce? I didn't say infidelity. I didn't say irreconcilable differences. I said, she killed it. I'm just signing the death certificate. He didn't ask any more questions after that. I got a message from Calvin. A direct message. This spineless piece of trash had the audacity to DM me on Instagram. Man to man. I didn't mean for it to happen. She said you guys were on the rocks. I didn't want to be in the middle. Hope you find peace. I stared at the screen like it was a joke. He called it being in the middle. Like he tripped and fell into her by accident. I didn't respond. I just took a screenshot and saved it in a folder I labeled evidence, just in case. You never know when the truth might be useful later. Natalie tried again too. She texted late one night. I miss Max. Not, I miss us. Not, I made a mistake. She missed the dog. I didn't respond. Max was asleep at my feet, snoring softly. And that was the only living being in this house who had earned my loyalty. 2 days later, I got a call from my friend Ethan. He works downtown. Apparently, Calvin had been let go from his company. Word got around. The board found out about the affair not from me, but from someone in HR who saw security footage. The same footage I threatened to show Natalie but never did. Turns out I didn't have to. Karma works fast when it's wearing heels. That night, I slept like a baby. I started changing things. Took down the framed wedding photo and replaced it with a map of the world I'd always wanted to hang. I painted the bedroom wall a dark navy she always said would be too depressing. I started cooking again for one, not two. And you know what? The silence started to feel good. Clean. Sharp. Like a knife slicing away the rot. One evening, I opened a box in the closet, the one with all our anniversary cards. I read through them. Some had little hearts, some long paragraphs. One said, "You are my always." Lies written in cursive. I burned them in the fireplace. Watched the edges curl, blacken, and disappear. It wasn't anger anymore. Not really. It was acceptance. This was my life now. Not ruined, just rewritten. A few friends started inviting me out. I said no the first few times. Not because I wasn't ready, but because I was learning to like being alone. No pretending. No decoding someone's mood. No walking on eggshells. Just me. One night, I sat outside with a beer, Max curled beside me, the stars overhead like quiet spectators. I looked up and smiled. She thought she broke me, but she gave me back to myself. 2 months later, the divorce was finalized. No drama. No court fights. She signed what she had to, took what she was allowed, and vanished. I watched her name slide off the mailbox like it never belonged there. Watched her emails disappear from our shared accounts. Watched her scent slowly fade from the bedroom sheets. It was done. A friend once told me that some endings don't explode, they dissolve. Quietly. Slowly. Until one day, you wake up and realize you haven't thought about them for hours, then days. He was right. I thought letting go would be this dramatic moment, like slamming a door or screaming into the night. But it wasn't. Letting go felt like standing in a room that used to be loud and realizing it's finally quiet. People asked if I'd date again. I said maybe. But the truth was, I was dating someone already myself. Getting to know the version of me that didn't compromise constantly. The guy who used to paint, used to write, used to laugh at dumb movies without checking someone else's reaction first. I started doing little things. Took weekend trips alone. Hiked. Took Max to the lake. Got a motorcycle. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I finally had space to live for myself. And one night, out of nowhere, I ran into her. At a grocery store. She looked different. Tired. Not physically, just dimmer. Like life had taken some of that fake confidence and scraped it away. She saw me and paused, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hey, she said. Hey. An awkward silence. You look good, she added. I didn't say it back. Thanks, I replied. Another pause. She glanced at my cart. Steak, dog treats, a bottle of wine. Still have Max? Of course. She nodded. I miss him. I didn't respond. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, do you ever think maybe we were just broken before it even began? I looked her in the eyes and said, no, we weren't broken. You broke it. And I walked away. I didn't look back. That night, I grilled the steak, threw Max a treat, poured my wine, and sat on the deck. Alone, but not lonely. The fireflies came out. The stars lit up. And I felt light, like the weight I carried for years had finally slipped off my shoulders without asking for permission. If I had any advice to give another man out there, trust your gut. Don't ignore the cold silences. Don't write off the late-night text she hides. Don't make excuses for the woman who stops holding your hand but keeps holding her phone. And if you catch her kissing someone else in your kitchen on your birthday, don't beg. Don't argue. Break the jaw if you have to. But most of all, walk away. Because sometimes the best gift you'll ever give yourself is the freedom to start over without the one who was holding you back the entire time. The end.
Hi. It started with blood. Mine, to be exact. I was barely conscious, sprawled on a cold hospital bed, my body aching from head to toe. I could hear the steady beeping of monitors, the sterile scent of antiseptics filling the air. I hadn't pieced together what exactly had happened, only flashes of pain, a scuffle, and then, nothing. My partner, Ethan, had managed to drag me out just in time, tackling that bastard Mike before things got even uglier. Mike, the man I'd never known existed until he tore my world apart. That bastard had left me bleeding on the pavement, but Ethan saved me. And that's when I thought of Sarah. My wife. The woman I had fought for, only to find out, painfully, that the battle wasn't mine alone. I was fighting for a woman who had been sharing secrets, whispers, and stolen glances with someone else behind my back. And now, here I was, alone in the hospital, the irony of it all hitting like salt on a wound. Days passed, and she never came. Not a single visit. Not a call. Just a barrage of strange, unfamiliar numbers flashing on my phone, then silence. I was still reeling from the blow, physically, sure, but mentally, I was crushed. I held on to one thought, she couldn't ignore me forever. But then reality slapped me harder than any physical injury ever could. One morning, while still tangled in bandages and resentment, a nurse came in, holding a stack of papers. Divorce papers. And a restraining order. The sight of those papers hit harder than any punch I'd taken that night. My mind raced, scrambling for logic where there was none. Divorce papers. A restraining order. Was she serious? This wasn't just an affair, this was a calculated escape plan. A knife plunged into my back while I was lying in a hospital bed, half dead because of her. I could barely manage a word to the nurse, who just gave me a polite, pitying look and left me with the documents. As soon as she was gone, I tore through the stack of pages. My hands were trembling, both from the pain and from something darker, hotter, betrayal mixed with raw rage. Every word was a slap, a reminder that the life I thought we shared was little more than a cheap lie. Then I saw it. His name, right there in black and white. Michael Turner, the other party. Mike. My wife's lover, her hero, her replacement. It wasn't just that she wanted a divorce, she wanted to erase me, wipe me out of her life as if I'd been nothing more than a shadow in her past. I felt something inside me break. It was no longer about her betrayal, it was about revenge. I knew I couldn't just walk away, not after everything. I called Ethan, who answered right away. "Hey, you alright?" His voice was filled with concern, the kind that only comes from someone who's had your back for years. He was the one who had fought alongside me that night, the one who had gotten me to the hospital. But he didn't know the whole story yet. "No, I'm not alright," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. "She's divorcing me, Ethan. And she's filed a restraining order against me." I could almost feel his shock through the phone. "What? Are you serious?" "Dead serious." I clenched my fist, the pain from my injuries flaring as if to remind me just how real this all was. "And it gets better. Mike, the guy who put me in the hospital, he's her boyfriend." Silence. Then a low, bitter laugh from Ethan. "You can't make this stuff up." I'd thought my heart couldn't break any further, but the idea that she was with him, that she'd chosen him over everything we'd built, gnawed at me like an infection. I needed to know how long it had been going on, why she'd done it, why she hadn't even had the decency to end things face to face. "She doesn't get to do this," I muttered, half to myself, half to Ethan. "Then don't let her." Ethan's voice was steady, almost too calm. "You have a right to the truth. And if she won't give it to you, we'll find it out ourselves." Ethan was right. That evening, Ethan and I sat in his car outside my house, the lights dim, watching as Sarah's car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out, laughing, her arm wrapped around Mike's waist. They looked like any other couple, oblivious to the world around them. Seeing them together in our driveway, turned my stomach. "Unbelievable," Ethan muttered, shaking his head. "The guts she has." But I wasn't there for another painful sight. I was there for answers. The two of them went inside, and we waited a few minutes before I got out of the car. Ethan gave me a final nod, a silent reassurance that he had my back. I walked up to the front door, bracing myself for whatever was about to happen. I could hear muffled voices inside, laughing, as if this was some cozy scene they'd shared 100 times before. I turned the handle and walked in, not bothering to knock. Sarah's face went pale the second she saw me. Mike stiffened, his grip tightening around her as though I were some dangerous intruder. In that moment, the woman I'd known, the woman I'd loved, transformed into a stranger, someone who looked at me with a mixture of disdain and indifference. "What the hell are you doing here?" Sarah demanded, her voice cold. She stepped back, as if my very presence was contaminating her space. "I came to get answers," I replied, barely able to contain the tremor in my voice. "And I'm not leaving until I get them." Mike smirked, crossing his arms as if he had some kind of upper hand. "We thought you'd get the message with the papers," he sneered. I ignored him, focusing on Sarah. "How long?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How long have you been lying to me?" She tilted her head, feigning boredom, like this confrontation was some inconvenience in her otherwise perfect life. "Does it matter?" "We're done, Jack. It's over." "It matters to me," I snapped, my patience fraying with every word. I deserve to know why you did this, why you let him turn my life upside down. For a second, something flickered in her eyes. But just as quickly, it vanished, replaced by a steely indifference. You want the truth, she said, folding her arms, almost amused. I was bored. You're predictable, Jack. Routine. I needed more, something exciting. And Mike gave me that. Every word felt like a dagger. Predictable? Routine? I'd loved her, supported her, built a life with her. And to her, that was nothing more than a dull routine. The rage inside me simmered, but I fought to keep control. You betrayed everything we had, and you think you can just walk away. That's not how it works, Sarah. Not after everything. She laughed, a bitter sound that twisted my stomach. You're such a martyr, Jack. Always trying to be the hero. But guess what? You were never enough for me. I felt myself break in that instant, the last remnants of the man I used to be crumbling. I'd been betrayed, beaten, and cast aside, and now she was looking at me like I was the pathetic one. The one left holding the pieces while she moved on with her new life. I took a step back, shaking with anger and disbelief. Ethan was still outside, but I felt his support even from a distance. I had come here for answers, and I'd gotten them, but it didn't bring me peace. It only lit a fire that was darker, hotter, something that demanded justice. I turned to leave, ready to put Sarah and her smug lover behind me, but before I could make it to the door, Mike called out, a sneer plastered on his face. You want to play hero, Jack? You'll just get hurt again. I didn't respond. But as I stepped out, my mind was already churning, every nerve alight with the promise of retribution. As I stepped outside into the cool night, my mind raced, each thought darker than the last. Ethan was leaning against his car, his eyes fixed on me as he lit a cigarette, a quiet support radiating from his presence. So, how'd it go? He asked, a smirk playing on his lips. But one look at my face, and he knew. His smirk faded. That bad, huh? Worse, I muttered, running a hand through my hair, trying to push down the urge to storm back inside and end things right then and there. She said I'm predictable, boring, that she needed more. Ethan's face tightened, his eyes narrowing toward the house. If she's bored now, wait until she finds out what real trouble feels like. He flicked his cigarette into the street, his gaze hardening. Ethan was always the one who took things a step further, who pushed boundaries in ways I never would. But tonight, I felt that same edge, that pull towards something darker. As we stood there, a plan started forming in my mind, a way to get the truth out in the open, and to make sure neither of them would walk away unscathed. We're not done yet, Ethan, I said, my voice low, steady. Not by a long shot. Ethan grinned, sensing my resolve. That's what I wanted to hear. So, what's the play? The next morning, I showed up at Sarah's work. She was in the lobby, coffee in hand, chatting with a coworker. The look on her face when she saw me was priceless, a mix of irritation and panic. I kept my face impassive as I walked up to her, the ticking bomb inside me demanding satisfaction. Can we talk? Outside? I said, not leaving room for argument. She gave a sigh, clearly annoyed, but she followed me outside, barely looking at me. What do you want, Jack? She said, crossing her arms, her voice a hiss. I took a deep breath, watching her closely, letting the silence hang between us for a few uncomfortable moments. It's simple, I began. You owe me more than a quick goodbye. I want an explanation, and I'm not going anywhere until I get it. Sarah rolled her eyes, and there it was, the flash of indifference, as if this whole thing was some minor inconvenience for her. Jack, it's over. I don't know why you can't just accept that. I leaned in, lowering my voice. It's not over. Not for me. Not until you admit what you've done, to my face. And then, maybe I'll consider walking away. She glared at me, her jaw tightening, but something shifted. She looked around, nervous, glancing at the people passing by. Fine, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. I slept with Mike. I was bored, okay? Does that make you feel better, Jack? Does it change anything? I felt my hands clench at my sides, the need for revenge bubbling up. But I kept my composure, a cold determination taking over. You think this ends here? You think you just walk away after tearing everything apart? My voice was low, steady. We're not done, Sarah. Not even close. With that, I turned on my heel and left, leaving her standing there, visibly shaken. Over the next few days, Ethan and I dug deep. We tracked Mike's every move, his habits, his life outside of Sarah. And then, finally, we struck gold. I found out that Mike had a few secrets of his own, debts, shady dealings, and an arrest record he'd managed to keep under wraps. All things that Sarah knew nothing about. Armed with this information, I made my next move. That evening, I messaged Sarah. Meet me. One last time. I have something you need to see. To my surprise, she agreed. She didn't know it, but she was about to find out that her shiny new life with Mike wasn't as perfect as she thought. We met in a quiet, empty park at dusk, the air tense with anticipation. What is this, Jack? She asked, exasperated. I handed her a folder, watching her face carefully as she opened it. The moment her eyes landed on Mike's criminal record, her smirk faded. She looked up at me, her face a mix of shock and confusion. I thought you should know exactly who you're leaving me for, I said, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. She didn't say a word, just stared down at the papers, her face growing paler with each line. Finally, she looked up, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of anger and fear. Why are you doing this? I shrugged, my gaze unwavering. Because you threw everything we had away for this guy. I figured you'd want to know what you're signing up for. Sarah's composure cracked, and for the first time, I saw her defenses drop. She looked uncertain, lost, her usual arrogance slipping. But I felt no sympathy, no regret. She'd chosen her path, and now she had to face it. I turned to leave, but before I took a step, I looked back at her one last time. You could have just been honest with me, Sarah. We could have ended this the right way. But you chose lies, betrayal. Now, whatever happens from here on, that's on you. And with that, I walked away, feeling the first shred of peace I'd felt since it all began. I didn't expect what happened next. A few days after the showdown in the park, I received a message from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it, expecting it to be another routine update from the lawyer. But what I saw stopped me cold, a blurry, poorly lit picture of Sarah, bruised and crying, with a message below. Stay out of this, Jack. Last warning. It didn't take much to figure out who it was from. Mike had crossed the line, and his intentions were clear. My jaw clenched, my hands shaking with a mix of anger and dread. This wasn't just about us anymore, this was getting ugly, fast. I knew Sarah had thrown me away for him, but seeing her like this, I couldn't just let it go. I called Ethan immediately. We've got a problem, I said, relaying what happened. Ethan let out a low curse. That guy's more dangerous than we thought. Are you sure you want to get involved? I don't have a choice, I replied, my voice resolute. I can't just ignore this. I drove to Sarah's house that night. The house was dark and quiet, but my instincts told me she was in there. I knocked, expecting nothing, but then the door creaked open just enough to reveal Sarah's face, shadowed and wary. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Jack, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked a lot like fear. "You shouldn't be here." "Yeah, I've been told," I replied, pushing the door open wider. She stepped back, letting me inside, and I got my first real look at her face. The bruises were fresh, a deep purple spreading along her cheek, a cut just under her eye. She looked away, ashamed, her shoulders slumping. "What happened?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. She hesitated, biting her lip, clearly wrestling with her pride. "Mike, he wasn't what I thought," she admitted, a tremor in her voice. "When I tried to end things, he lost it. Told me if I ever left, well, you can see for yourself. All those nights she'd spent with him, all the lies she'd spun, and now she was trapped in her own web, with Mike holding the strings." A twisted part of me wanted to remind her this was exactly what she'd chosen, but seeing her like this, I just couldn't. Some part of me still felt responsible, still felt the need to protect her. "I can't just let him get away with this," I said, my voice hardening. "He's not going to keep controlling you. Not after everything." Sarah looked at me, her eyes wide, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. "What are you going to do, Jack? You can't go up against him. He'll destroy you." But that was the thing, I had nothing left to lose. He'd already taken everything that mattered to me. Now, he was going to see what happened when I fought back. With Ethan by my side, we started digging deeper, finding every dirty secret Mike had buried. We discovered his old business ties, the illegal loans, the debts he owed to people who didn't ask twice when it came to payback. Mike had enemies, dangerous ones, and we found out exactly where they were. It was a high-stakes plan, but it was the only way. We knew he'd try to retaliate, but I was ready for whatever he threw my way. When Mike got word that I was digging into his past, things escalated fast. He began showing up outside my place, following me, leaving threats on my car, reminders that he was still watching. But the worst came one night when Ethan and I were at the bar, going over our next steps. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, a single line that sent a chill down my spine. "He's here. He's coming after you, Jack." Ethan and I barely had time to react before we heard tires screeching outside. We exchanged a glance, knowing what was coming. Mike burst through the door, his face contorted with rage, a dark, dangerous look in his eyes. He lunged, fists swinging, but Ethan was faster, grabbing Mike by the arm and twisting it with a sickening crunch. I heard the crack as his arm snapped, but Mike's fury didn't let up. "You think you can mess with me?" he shouted, his voice hoarse. "You think you can just take what's mine?" I stood my ground, meeting his gaze with cold defiance. "Sarah was never yours. And now, you've lost everything." Mike tried to wrench himself free, but Ethan held firm. "You're done, Mike," he growled. "You crossed too many lines, and now you're facing the consequences." But then, as we dragged him outside, the flashing lights appeared, cops, summoned by someone in the bar. Mike's twisted grin faded as he realized what was happening. He was about to be exposed for everything, the threats, the abuse, the illegal deals. And just like that, he was finally trapped. In the aftermath, Sarah came to me, fragile but grateful. She apologized, stammering out words I'd waited so long to hear, but they felt hollow now. The damage was done, and I'd already made my peace with it. I wasn't interested in rebuilding, in mending a broken trust. "You don't owe me anything," I told her, my voice calm. "Just remember this the next time you think about tearing someone else's life apart." She nodded, a shadow of her former self, finally realizing the cost of her choices. As I walked away, Ethan fell into step beside me, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "It's over," he said with a small smile. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. In that moment, I knew I'd finally found closure, not through forgiveness, but through reclaiming my own life. And as we walked into the night, I knew that whatever came next, I was ready. A week passed, and life had started to settle. The storm was over, or so I thought. Then came another twist, one I hadn't seen coming. One evening, as I was unpacking boxes in the new apartment I'd rented to escape the ghosts of that old life, I got a knock on the door. Expecting it to be Ethan, I opened it casually, only to find Sarah standing there, eyes wide and filled with panic. She looked over her shoulder, as if she were being followed, and pushed her way inside before I could say a word. "What are you doing here?" I asked, the exhaustion in my voice barely hidden. "Jack, I know I have no right to be here, but something's happened," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I think someone's after me." I stared at her, trying to gauge whether this was another one of her manipulations or if she was actually afraid. "You mean Mike? You're the one who got him locked up, Sarah. He can't touch you now." "It's not Mike," she stammered, clutching her bag tightly. "It's someone else, someone he was working with. They think I know something I shouldn't." I felt a chill. Despite everything, there was something genuine in her fear that twisted my gut. Whatever mess she was in now, it was a result of the life she'd chosen with Mike. But no matter how I tried to walk away from her, I couldn't ignore the fact that she was in real danger. She wasn't just the cheating wife anymore, she was a terrified woman, running from shadows she didn't understand. "All right," I said reluctantly, motioning her to sit. "Start from the beginning." She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. Mike had people he owed money to, not just debts. He'd been smuggling things, moving illegal goods for people I didn't even know existed. When he got arrested, they must have thought I knew something, or that I had some kind of leverage. They started following me, Jack. I can't sleep, I can't go to work. And now I have nowhere else to turn. I didn't want to believe her. Every rational part of me screamed to walk away, to let her face the consequences on her own. But then she said the one thing that made my blood run cold. "They said they're coming after you, too." I froze, my thoughts racing. If she was right, this wasn't just her problem anymore. Whatever Mike had been involved in had extended its reach, far beyond their sordid affair. Now, I was caught in the fallout of her choices all over again. Only this time, it was a matter of survival. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I demanded, my voice tight. "You should have warned me the second this started." "I didn't know who to trust," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're the only one who's ever cared enough to help. I don't know what to do, Jack. I'm scared." I clenched my jaw, staring at her. The part of me that still cared, still remembered who we used to be, wavered. I had every reason to walk away. She'd betrayed me, lied to me, hurt me in ways I couldn't even begin to explain. But the danger was real, and if I didn't do something, it would consume us both. I nodded, already forming a plan. "All right. We're getting out of here. Tonight." We packed quickly, grabbing essentials. As we slipped out the back entrance of the building, I caught a shadow moving across the street. My pulse spiked. They were already watching, waiting. I pulled Sarah close, my voice a whisper. "We need to move fast. They know where I live." Ethan was the first call I made, telling him to meet us at a safe location he'd once mentioned, a place off the grid. He didn't ask questions, he only promised to be there. As we drove through the deserted streets, my mind raced through every possibility, every angle. I knew these people wouldn't just stop because Mike was in jail. They wanted something, and until we figured out what it was, we were as good as targets. We arrived at Ethan's cabin in the middle of the woods, hidden from any prying eyes. Ethan was waiting outside, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a sharp edge. He took one look at Sarah and then at me, his expression serious. "You both have a lot to explain," he said quietly, ushering us inside. Once we were settled, Sarah started recounting everything she knew, the debt, the deals, the people Mike had crossed. As the pieces fell into place, it became clear just how deeply she'd been entangled in his mess. And now, thanks to her, so was I. They want leverage, Ethan muttered, pacing the cabin. Mike's in jail, but they're hoping to use you two to flush out anyone else involved. If they think either of you has anything that could incriminate them, they'll stop at nothing. The reality hit hard. We were outnumbered, under-equipped, and completely vulnerable. I looked at Sarah, a surge of anger mixed with something I couldn't name. "What now?" she whispered, looking up at me. I didn't know what to tell her. She was right to be afraid, but there was no easy way out of this. We were trapped, the price of her betrayal now a shared burden we couldn't shake. Ethan glanced between us, his gaze settling on me. "We have two options," he said slowly. "We can run, try to stay hidden, or, we take the fight to them." I looked at Ethan, then at Sarah, who seemed even paler at the suggestion. The idea of running was tempting, but I knew it would only prolong the inevitable. We'd be looking over our shoulders forever, waiting for them to catch up. No, if we wanted to end this, we had to confront it head-on. I nodded, feeling a dark resolve settle over me. "We fight back." Ethan's grin was fierce. "Good choice." We spent the night strategizing, pulling every resource we had. Contacts, locations, any traceable connection to Mike's associates. It was risky, reckless even, but I realized something as we worked: I wasn't doing this for Sarah anymore. This was about reclaiming the life that her lies had shattered, taking back control from a nightmare I never asked for. And so, as dawn broke, we set our plan into motion. The game had changed, and this time, I was ready for anything. The first strike was set for that evening. We knew from Sarah's information and some calls Ethan made that Mike's associates had a hideout in an old warehouse near the docks, a place where they ran their shady operations. They thought we were hiding, that we were scared. But they were about to learn just how far I was willing to go. Ethan and I pulled up a block away, cloaked in the cover of night, with Sarah in the back seat, her eyes wide and anxious. She hadn't said a word the whole drive. I could feel her fear, and, despite everything, I felt a grim satisfaction. For once, she was feeling what I'd felt, helpless, out of control, staring down a future that had veered off course. "Stay in the car," I told her, my voice as cold as the air outside. "If anything goes wrong, drive. Don't wait for us." She nodded, clutching her hands tightly, and for the first time, I could see a glimmer of something genuine, regret, maybe. But I didn't have time to read into it. Ethan was already out of the car, his face set in grim determination. As we crept toward the warehouse, my heartbeat synced with every calculated step. I felt that surge of adrenaline, the electric rush of taking control, knowing that for once, I wasn't the one on the receiving end. This time, I'd be the one dealing the blows. Inside, shadows moved across the warehouse floor, the low hum of conversation filling the air. 3 men were stationed by the main entry, checking something on a tablet, maybe monitoring shipments or tracking people like Sarah. It didn't matter. Tonight, they were targets. Ethan nodded to me, signaling that he was ready. He had a knack for this, an instinct honed from years of dealing with people you didn't want to cross. Without a word, we moved in. The first guard never saw it coming. Ethan grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the wall before he could reach for his weapon. I took down the second, knocking him flat with a punch that felt as much like catharsis as it did aggression. The third guard turned, his hand darting to his gun, but I was faster, sweeping his legs out from under him before he could pull the trigger. In seconds, we had them down, their weapons confiscated, their bodies tied to a support beam in the corner. One of them, tall, thin, with a sneer permanently etched into his face, watched us with a mix of anger and contempt. "You think you can just walk in here and mess with us?" he spat, his voice laced with venom. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Oh, I think I do, I replied, my voice calm, controlled. I pulled up a photo on my phone, the one Mike had sent me of Sarah, bruised and bloodied. You work for him, don't you? You help intimidate people, terrorize families. Well, now it's your turn. He sneered, but there was fear in his eyes, a flicker that told me he understood just how serious I was. Ethan stepped closer, leaning down so that his face was inches away from the guards. We know everything, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Where you move the goods, who you owe, where you hide the money. So here's the deal, you either tell us everything, or we make sure your boss knows you talked. The man's expression wavered, his confidence eroding. He swallowed, glancing toward his comrades, who were equally silent, their eyes fixed on the floor. Finally, he spoke. All right, he muttered. Mike, he was just a small player. The real guy you want is Hendricks. He's the one running the entire operation. Drugs, smuggling, all of it. I felt a dark satisfaction settle over me. Hendricks was a name I'd heard before, a powerful figure with a reputation for crushing anyone who crossed him. Mike was nothing more than his pawn, a disposable piece in a much larger game. And now, I was about to become his biggest problem. Where do we find him? I demanded. The guard hesitated, but a sharp look from Ethan made him break. There's a meet tomorrow night at the old shipyard. He'll be there with his crew. We left the warehouse without a hitch, our next move already clear. Sarah was still in the car, her expression a mix of shock and relief when we returned. For the first time, I saw her as a partner in this chaos, an unwilling accomplice to the nightmare she'd set in motion. The next night, we arrived at the shipyard, cloaked in darkness, waiting for Hendricks to make his appearance. The air was thick with tension, every creak and rustle amplified in the silence. Ethan had set up a vantage point, his rifle trained on the main entrance, while I waited below, concealed behind a stack of shipping containers. Sarah stayed in the car, as instructed, her face pale as she watched from a distance. It wasn't long before headlights appeared in the distance, a convoy of SUVs pulling up to the yard. The doors opened, and men poured out, Hendricks' crew. Then, finally, the man himself stepped out, a tall, imposing figure with a cigar between his teeth, radiating the kind of arrogance that came from a life of untouchable power. I watched him, my fists clenched, waiting for the signal from Ethan. But just as I prepared to move, a voice crackled through the radio in my ear. Jack, hold up. We've got a problem. My heart skipped. What is it? Sarah. She's out of the car. She's walking toward them. I turned, barely believing what I was hearing. Sure enough, there she was, stepping out of the shadows, walking straight toward Hendricks and his men. My mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. Why would she risk everything? Sarah. I whispered harshly into the radio, hoping she had hers on. What the hell are you doing? She didn't respond. She just kept walking, her gaze fixed on Hendricks, her posture tense but determined. Then, as she drew closer, Hendricks noticed her, his eyes narrowing. He took a step forward, a sneer on his lips. Well. Look who's decided to show up, he drawled. Mike's little lady. Finally found the guts to join us, huh? And then, to my shock, she pulled something from her coat, a flash drive, held out in her hand. You want Mike's files? Here they are, she said, her voice steady. In exchange, you leave us alone. Me and Jack. Hendricks chuckled, shaking his head. You think you're in a position to bargain? But she held firm, her eyes blazing with defiance. I know everything, Hendricks. If I don't report back, those files go public. You lose everything. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She'd played all of us, Mike, Hendricks, even me. She'd kept that drive hidden, knowing it was her last card, her only leverage against the monsters she'd entangled herself with. And now, she was putting it all on the line, risking everything to end this once and for all. Hendrik stared at her, considering, and then, with a slow nod, he motioned to his men. "Take the drive. We're done here." As they retreated, Sarah turned back, her face pale but victorious, meeting my stunned gaze as if daring me to say something. But words failed me. In that moment, I realized she'd done what none of us could, she'd saved us both, even if it cost her the last shreds of my trust. We left the shipyard in silence, and as we drove off into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just witnessed the most unexpected twist of all. Sarah, the woman who'd torn my world apart, had just saved my life. The drive back was quiet, the air thick with words unspoken. Sarah sat beside me, her face illuminated by the passing streetlights, her expression unreadable. I kept my hands steady on the wheel, feeling the strange weight of gratitude and disbelief tangled in my mind. She had saved me, saved both of us, but why? After everything she'd put me through, I couldn't make sense of her motives. As we pulled up to my apartment, I parked but made no move to get out. Sarah turned to me, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "Jack. I know I can't take back what I've done. But I had to make things right, somehow." I let out a slow breath, leaning back in my seat, staring at the dashboard. "Right? Sarah, you tore my life apart. You let someone like Mike into our lives, and I nearly lost everything. And now you want to make things right?" Her shoulders sagged, and she looked down, fiddling with the hem of her jacket. "I never wanted it to go this far. I didn't think I'd end up here, fighting to survive alongside you. I just wanted to feel alive again." I closed my eyes, letting the weight of her words sink in. "So, what now? You put yourself and me on the line to save us from Hendrix. But where does that leave us, Sarah?" She shook her head, visibly exhausted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know, Jack. I don't know if there's a way forward for us." I was about to respond when Ethan's car pulled up behind us. He stepped out, giving Sarah a long, scrutinizing look before nodding at me. "Glad to see you both made it out. What's the plan now?" "We figure out what to do with that drive," I replied. "Whatever Mike kept on it could lead to more of Hendrix's people." Sarah stiffened, glancing at the drive, which now sat in my hand. "I don't think that's a good idea, Jack. You don't know the kinds of people Hendrix works with. If you release that, we'll have targets on our backs, both of us." I glanced over at her, suspicion creeping back in. "Are you protecting him? After everything?" "No," she snapped, her eyes flashing with frustration. "I'm trying to protect you, Jack. Hendrix might have agreed to leave us alone, but that truce won't hold if you start dismantling his network. He's ruthless, and he won't think twice before coming after us." Ethan looked between us, his brow furrowed. "She has a point. If we make a move now, we'd better be prepared to go all in. No half measures." The weight of the decision hung between us. Holding on to the drive was dangerous, but turning it over was even riskier. And yet, something about letting Hendrix walk free didn't sit right with me. After everything, I wanted more than survival, I wanted justice. I held up the drive, watching Sarah's reaction carefully. "I can't just let this go. I've lost too much because of this man, and so have you." She bit her lip, visibly torn. "If you do this, Jack, you'll need more than just Ethan's help. Hendrix has connections everywhere, police, officials, even higher-ups. You'd need someone who knows the system inside and out." Ethan, ever quick to catch on to ideas, looked at her sharply. "And you think you know someone who can take Hendrix down?" For the first time, I saw Sarah hesitate, as though she were weighing her options. Finally, she sighed. "There is someone. An old friend of mine from college, Andrea. She's a prosecutor now, one of the few who's actually clean. She's been building a case against Hendricks for years but has never had the evidence to tie him directly to any crimes. Ethan raised an eyebrow. So, she'd be interested in this little package of ours? More than interested, Sarah confirmed. But if we go to her, we're putting ourselves in the middle of a legal nightmare. If Andrea uses this, Hendricks will know exactly who gave it to her. And he'll come after us with everything he's got. I let out a slow breath, glancing over at Ethan. He gave me a nod, silently telling me he was in, no matter the risk. But Sarah, for the first time, I wondered if she was truly ready to go through with this, knowing the stakes. All right, I said finally. We'll go to Andrea. But if we do this, we're all in. No second guessing, no running. Sarah nodded, her face set with a determination I hadn't seen in her before. I'm in, Jack. I owe you that much. The next morning, we met Andrea in a quiet cafe outside the city. She was sharp, confident, and wasted no time cutting to the chase. As Sarah slid the drive across the table, Andrea's eyes lit up, her focus sharpening. This is the evidence I've been waiting for, she said, her voice barely containing her excitement. With this, I can get Hendricks on more than just trafficking. I can dismantle his entire network. Sarah's face softened, visibly relieved, as though handing over the drive was finally freeing her from the chains of her past. But Andrea's next words pulled us all back to reality. But you need to know, if I take this, it's going to paint targets on all of you. Hendricks has people everywhere. Witness protection might be necessary. Witness protection. The words hit like a punch to the gut. I hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't considered what this might mean for my entire life. Ethan and I exchanged glances, both of us silently understanding the magnitude of what we were about to lose. Our homes, our lives, our identities. I'll do it, Sarah said softly, her eyes fixed on the table. If it means Hendricks goes down, I'll do whatever it takes. Andrea nodded, looking to Ethan and me for confirmation. You too? Ethan gave a solemn nod, and then it was my turn. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all bearing down, but I knew I couldn't turn back. Yes, I said, my voice steady. We're in. Andrea closed her hand over the drive, a determined glint in her eye. Then let's get to work. The process moved quickly. Within days, Andrea had Hendricks's network under federal scrutiny, every move monitored, every asset frozen. Hendricks was cornered, but the retaliation came swiftly. Threatening notes, anonymous calls, even a break-in at my apartment confirmed that the danger was real and unrelenting. A week later, as Hendricks was officially arrested, the news painted it as a victory. But for us, it was the start of a new life. Witness protection had already been arranged, and it was time for each of us to step into roles we'd never imagined. Sarah approached me on the last night, her face solemn, her voice quiet. Jack. I just wanted to say, thank you. For everything. For not walking away when you had every reason to. I looked at her, feeling an odd sense of closure. She'd broken my trust, shattered my life, but she had also fought beside me, risking everything to make things right. Goodbye, Sarah, I said, offering her a nod. Take care of yourself. And then, with a strange sense of peace, I walked away, leaving the wreckage of the past behind me. In that moment, I realized something. She had saved my life, but in doing so, she'd given me something more, my freedom. 2 months into witness protection, my new life was quiet. Too quiet. I was relocated to a small, coastal town under the name Daniel Myers. I'd traded in my old life for anonymity, and the simplicity was jarring. There were no more shadowy threats, no more confrontations. Just the sound of the waves, a creaky old apartment, and strangers who knew me as nothing more than the new guy from out of town. For a while, I kept my head down, hoping I could settle into this routine, start fresh. But some nights, when the silence grew too loud, I couldn't shake the memories of everything that had happened, the betrayal, the showdown with Hendrix, and even the tense, strange alliance with Sarah. I tried not to think about her, about Ethan, about the life that had been carved out from under me. But as much as I tried, pieces of it would creep back, pricking like old wounds that hadn't fully healed. Then, one evening, as I was closing up the small dockside store where I'd been working part-time, I felt someone's eyes on me. I turned, catching a glimpse of a figure leaning against the streetlight across the road. He was tall, wearing a black coat, his face obscured by shadows. My heart skipped, old instincts kicking in. I forced myself to stay calm, pretending not to notice as I finished locking up, moving slowly toward my car. The figure didn't move, just watched. But something in my gut told me it wasn't just a passerby. My mind raced. Could it be someone from Hendrix's crew? Maybe one of his associates who hadn't gone down with the rest of his network? As I slid into my car, I felt a jolt of panic, half expecting the figure to approach, to make a move. But as I pulled out of the parking lot, I saw him simply turn and disappear into the night. It left me rattled. Was I just being paranoid? Maybe it was nothing more than the residue of a life spent looking over my shoulder. But that sense of unease grew over the next few days. I noticed small things: my mail opened and hastily resealed, footprints in the sand outside my door. A dark car parked just out of view, then gone before I could get a good look. I tried to ignore it, tried to convince myself that I was safe, that it was all in my head. But deep down, I knew better. A week later, the silence finally broke. I found a note slipped under my door, scrawled in handwriting I didn't recognize. "We need to talk. I'll wait by the dock at midnight." My heart hammered. No name, no hint of who it could be. The cautious part of me wanted to ignore it, to barricade the door and forget about it. But curiosity and a need for answers overpowered my fear. Whoever this was, they'd found me. And if I didn't confront it now, I'd never know peace again. At midnight, I made my way to the dock, the sea air thick and cold, every creak of the wooden planks echoing like a warning. I scanned the shadows, my nerves taut, until I saw a figure standing at the end of the dock, silhouetted against the moonlit water. It was Sarah. I froze, disbelief coursing through me. She was supposed to be in her own new life, somewhere far away. And yet, here she was, looking more worn, more guarded, as if the months had taken a toll on her, too. "Jack," she started, then stopped, as if my old name felt foreign to her now. "Or should I call you Daniel?" "What are you doing here, Sarah?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. Witness protection wasn't exactly designed for late-night reunions. She looked down, clearly uncomfortable. "I know. But I had no choice." "What happened?" I asked, keeping my voice low but unable to mask the frustration. "We said goodbye. That was supposed to be the end." She took a shaky breath, stepping closer. "It's not over, Jack. Hendrix's network was bigger than any of us realized. He had partners, silent ones. People who were never caught, who weren't part of the original investigation. They've been coming after me ever since." The pieces fell into place. If Hendrix had powerful allies still out there, then Sarah wasn't safe, and, by extension, neither was I. "I've had to keep running," she continued, her voice breaking. "Everywhere I go, they find me. I tried to go to Andrea, but she's gone completely silent. And then they started asking about you. That's when I knew they'd found out where you were." My mind raced. So, Andrea had disappeared too? The prosecution must have rattled someone in Hendrix's network enough that they were determined to erase anyone connected to it. "Why come here?" I asked, my voice harsh with suspicion. Bringing them to me only puts us both in danger. Because we're the only ones who know the truth, she replied, her voice trembling. They want to erase all of it, every link to Hendrix's operation. They want to wipe the slate clean. I came because I thought, maybe together, we could figure out a way to expose them, to end this for good. I let out a bitter laugh. You think that after everything, we'd make a good team? She stepped closer, desperation in her eyes. Jack, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I need your help. I don't want to run anymore. I can't live like this, always looking over my shoulder, knowing they're watching, waiting for a slip. I stared at her, wrestling with a surge of conflicting emotions. She was the reason my life had fallen apart. And yet, looking at her now, I saw someone trapped, hunted. Just like me. As much as I hated it, I understood her fear. And maybe, just maybe, she was right. We were both marked now, both tangled in a network that wouldn't let us go until every loose end was tied up. Finally, I nodded. All right. But if we do this, it's on my terms. We gather as much information as we can. We don't trust anyone. And once we have enough, we burn the whole operation down. A glimmer of relief crossed her face. Thank you, Jack. I didn't know where else to turn. Don't thank me yet, I said sharply. There's no telling what this will cost us. That night, we made a plan, a dangerous, reckless plan to find every last hidden piece of Hendrix's operation. We'd follow the money, trace every contact, and take down whoever was left. But even as we plotted our next steps, I knew this wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about freedom, the only way to end the nightmare once and for all. And for the first time in months, I felt alive. Over the following weeks, Sarah and I followed the threads of Hendrix's network with Ethan's help, piecing together a web that spanned corrupt officials, hidden accounts, and offshore assets. Each discovery brought us closer to the heart of his operation. We were working in the shadows, hiding, meeting in new locations each night, always one step ahead of the unseen enemies closing in. Then, one night, we stumbled upon something that shook everything we thought we knew. Sarah found an encrypted file buried in one of Hendrix's offshore accounts, hidden behind layers of security. When we finally cracked it open, the document revealed a list of names, including powerful officials, police officers, and even our contact, Andrea. It was a ledger, an inventory of everyone Hendrix had been working with, or more disturbingly, everyone he had dirt on. This was leverage beyond anything we could have imagined. But that wasn't the only shock. Near the bottom of the list, one name stood out like a flashing light, Ethan Tanner. I stared at the screen, feeling my world collapse in on itself. Ethan, my closest friend, my confidant in all of this, was on Hendrix's payroll? He'd known about the operation all along. Had he been feeding information back to them? What does this mean? Sarah whispered, glancing at me with wide eyes. It means, I said slowly, the betrayal sinking in like ice, that everything we've done, all the plans, every move we made, Ethan knew about it. And if he's with them, then they know, too. Panic surged through me, but I forced myself to stay calm. We need to get out of here, I said, grabbing the laptop and shoving it into my bag. If Ethan's been working with them, they'll know we found this soon. But as we moved toward the door, it swung open, and there stood Ethan, his face an unreadable mask. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out, he said, his voice eerily calm. Guess you're sharper than I gave you credit for, Jack. I felt a surge of fury and betrayal so fierce I could barely breathe. Why, Ethan? After everything we've been through, why? He sighed, shrugging, a mocking look in his eyes. Power, Jack. It's always about power. Hendrix offered me a life that people only dream of. Security, wealth, control. I couldn't pass it up, and neither would you if you'd been smart enough to see the opportunity. Opportunity? I shot back, clenching my fists. You call tearing apart lives and selling out your friends an opportunity? Ethan smirked, his gaze shifting to Sarah. I'm just tying up loose ends, Jack. You were supposed to stay hidden, disappear, but you just couldn't leave it alone, could you? He pulled a gun, aiming it at us both, and a chilling calm settled over me. This was it. I was face to face with the final betrayal, the ultimate twist in this brutal game, and I could feel the weight of it like a stone in my chest. But I wasn't about to let him take everything from me, not after everything I'd lost. In a flash, I lunged forward, grabbing his arm and twisting it, the gun clattering to the floor. Sarah jumped back, stunned, as we struggled, each of us fighting with a desperation that was primal, fierce. Ethan was stronger, his grip relentless, but my anger, my rage at the betrayal gave me an edge. I managed to break free, slamming him against the wall. But just as I went to reach for the gun, he laughed, a cruel, knowing sound that sent a chill down my spine. You think taking me down will end this? He sneered. There are more out there, Jack. They'll come for you both, and when they do, they'll erase you like you never existed. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the gun and aimed it at him, my hand steady. Then let them come, I said, my voice cold. And in that moment, I pulled the trigger. Ethan crumpled to the floor, his mocking smile finally erased, his threats silenced. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel Sarah's presence beside me, her hand trembling as it found mine. It's over, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But as I looked down at Ethan, his final words lingered, a dark reminder that the battle was far from over. The people behind Hendrix, the unseen forces pulling the strings, they wouldn't let this go. We'd taken down one piece of the network, but there were more, hidden in the shadows, waiting. Sarah squeezed my hand, and in that moment, we both understood. We would never truly be free. But together, with the truth in our hands, we had one final mission. We expose them, I said, my voice filled with a steely resolve. We bring everything to light, every last name, every piece of evidence. They can't hide if the whole world knows. Sarah nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. Then let's finish this. Together, we walked out of the warehouse and into the night, ready to face whatever came next, armed with the truth and a new purpose. In that moment, I realized that freedom wasn't about hiding. It was about facing the darkness head-on, refusing to let fear control us. The game wasn't over. But this time, we weren't running. We were ready to burn down the empire they had built, no matter the cost. Bye for now.